Welcome to Liberty Audiobook. This is your guide to building a superhuman mind. Build a superhuman mind, a practical guide to becoming extraordinary. Every extraordinary life begins with a single decision, not a grand earth-shattering choice, but a quiet, resolute commitment. The decision to think differently, not necessarily bigger or faster, but fundamentally, profoundly differently. Because the moment you consciously shift the way your mind operates, everything you touch, everything you envision, everything you strive for begins to shift with it. The world, with its relentless chatter and ingrained conventions, may whisper, even shout, that greatness is a rare gift reserved for a select few. It might tell you that genius is born, not built. That impact is for the privileged, not the persistent. But the truth, as we will uncover together, is far simpler and infinitely more empowering. Greatness does not belong to the lucky or the genetically predisposed. Greatness belongs to the person who learns how to forge a powerful, disciplined, elevated mind. And that person, dear listener, can be you. This audiobook, Build a Superhuman Mind, a practical guide to becoming extraordinary, is not a quick fix. It is not another fleeting burst of motivation, designed to fade by tomorrow's sunrise. This is your blueprint, your practical, autonomous guide to an inner transformation so profound that it becomes impossible to ignore. We are talking about cultivating a mind so sharp, so focused, so well-trained that your actions naturally rise to a level where doubt simply cannot fit. People do not question the extraordinary. They simply witness it, often in quiet awe. In the hours we will spend together, we will embark on a profound journey of internal architecture. We will meticulously rebuild your mental foundation, layer by intentional layer. We will sharpen your focus until it cuts through distraction like a laser. We will strengthen your emotional power, transforming vulnerability into resilience. And together, we will cultivate the unshakable discipline and piercing clarity required to become a person of undeniable strength, a person of true mental liberty. You will learn how to feed your mind with the right knowledge, not just any information, but high-value input that fuels growth. You will gain mastery over your inner dialogue, learning to control your self-talk so it becomes your most trusted ally, not your harshest critic. You will discover how to rise from challenges, not merely intact, but stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. And, most importantly, you will learn to step into the identity of the person you were always capable of becoming, shedding the constraints of the past and embracing the boundless potential of your future. This journey is not about becoming better than others. The pursuit of external comparison is a hollow one. This is about becoming better than the older version of yourself, consistently, deliberately, relentlessly. You are here listening to these words because deep down you know there is more inside you. There always has been. The whispers of unfulfilled potential, the stirrings of a greater self have led you to this moment. It is time to answer that call. It is time to unlock that inner reservoir of strength. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Rebuild your inner foundation. Before you attempt to improve any aspect of your life, your habits, your discipline, your focus, or your confidence, she can need to understand one foundational truth. None of it lasts if the structure beneath it is cracked. Imagine an architect trying to build a gleaming skyscraper on top of a crumbling base. No matter how magnificent the design, how advanced the materials, the entire edifice is doomed to collapse the moment pressure, a strong wind, or a minor tremor shows up. Most people, in their earnest desire for a powerful life, inadvertently make this mistake. They try to stack ambitious goals and new habits on top of a weak inner structure, and then they wonder why everything inevitably crumbles when life gets heavy. But you, dear listener, are here for something far greater. You aspire to a superhuman mind, a mind that does not just endure adversity, but grows through it, a mind that stands firm while others fold, a mind that, like the ancient Stoics, finds tranquility amidst chaos. And that profound transformation begins with rebuilding what you believe about yourself at the deepest, most fundamental level. Let us be honest for a moment. Peel back the layers of superficial achievements and external validation. Your true inner foundation is not built from your talents, your current environment, your past successes, or your perceived failures. It is built from the story you tell yourself every single day. And that story, that internal narrative, shapes your identity. If the story you rehearse is one of weakness, limitation, or unworthiness, then your identity will be weak, your actions hesitant, and your potential capped. But if the story is powerful, expansive, and true to your highest self, then your identity becomes unstoppable. It becomes a force of nature. So the very first step in this journey, though deceptively simple, is the most crucial. You must challenge the old story, the one that whispers, "This is who I have always been," or "This is just the way I am," as if these pronouncements are immutable laws of the universe. No, that is not the story you wrote. That is the story you inherited, a script handed down by your environment, your culture, your family, your past experiences. Perhaps it was a careless comment from a teacher, a perceived failure in your youth, or a societal expectation you unconsciously absorbed. Regardless of its origin, you are allowed to rewrite it. In fact, you must rewrite it if you want to rise to your true, unburdened level. Think of your mind truly like the foundation of a house. If the base is unstable, it does not matter how beautiful the structure looks on the outside. Fresh paint, the manicured garden, the elegant furnishings will eventually tilt, crack, and fall. The same precise dynamic plays out in your life. You might force discipline for a few days, fueled by a surge of fleeting motivation. You might push yourself through sheer willpower for a few weeks, feeling a temporary thrill of progress. But then, when stress hits, when an unexpected challenge arises, when the novelty wears off, you find yourself sliding back into old patterns. You revert to your default. Why? Because the foundation has not changed. You are trying to act like a new, default person while still identifying deep down as the old one. That eternal gap, that dissonance between your desired self and your perceived self, creates immense mental resistance. It breeds inconsistency. It leads to the self-sabotage that so often precedes failure. And you do not need to live like that anymore. That cycle can end. Now, rebuilding your inner foundation means choosing who you want to become first with absolute clarity and conviction. Then, and only then, aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions with that chosen identity, not the other way around. Most people wait to feel ready or confident or capable or even inspired before they dare to move forward. They postpone their greatness, endlessly preparing, endlessly waiting for a magical sign. But you, listening to this, are not most people anymore. You decide, then you become. You act, then you evolve. You lead yourself with unwavering purpose and confidence. That elusive companion catches up later, often surprisingly swiftly. That is the fundamental principle upon which powerful, superhuman minds are built. And yes, let us acknowledge this honestly. Rebuilding your inner foundation will feel uncomfortable at first. It might even feel unsettling, like shifting tectonic plates beneath your very being. You will question yourself. You will face the familiar insidious voice that whispers, "You are not enough," or "Who do you think you are?" But here's the profound secret. That voice is not your enemy. It is a sign. A powerful, undeniable signal that you are pushing into new, uncharted territory. It is your old identity. That comfortable, familiar construct, desperately trying to keep you in the same predictable place. When you hear that voice, do not panic. Do not retreat. Acknowledge it for what it is, boast of your past, a remnant of a story that no longer serves you. Smile at it. Perhaps even thank it for its efforts to keep you safe. Then keep moving. Because the moment you stop letting that voice dictate your decisions, the moment you reclaim your mental sovereignty, everything shifts. You rebuild your foundation every time you choose growth over comfort, even in the smallest moments. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how minor. Every time you take one more step forward, especially when you feel like quitting. These moments, seemingly insignificant on their own, are the bricks. Sturdy, unshakable bricks that create a new, resilient identity. And when enough of those bricks stack up, quietly, consistently, something incredible happens. You start to trust yourself, not superficially, but with a deep, knowing certainty. And that trust, that profound self-belief, becomes power, an unshakable, foundational power that emanates from within. So today, right now, I want you to make one unwavering decision. Decide who you will become. Not someday, when circumstances improve or when you feel ready, But now, decide the standard you will live by, the non-negotiable principles that will guide your path. Decide the story you will accept as your truth, the narrative that empowers rather than limits. Decide the identity that perfectly matches the extraordinary life you truly want to create. Because once that foundation is rebuilt, once the inside becomes strong, solid, and aligned, the outside, your reality, your results, your opportunities, has no choice but to follow. This is where your true transformation truly begins. Not with fleeting habits, not with external motivation, but with a new, unshakable foundation that declares with quiet conviction, I am becoming extraordinary. And from this moment forward, everything you build will stand. Not because of luck or external forces, but because it is built on truth, strength, and intentionality. This is the first act of liberation. Freeing your mind from the narratives of the past. Chapter 2. Train your mind like an athlete trains the body. If you truly desire a superhuman mind, a mind that operates with precision, endurance, and unyielding strength, you must adopt the mindset and methodology of an elite athlete. You have to treat your mind the same way an athlete treats their body. Intention, discipline, and deliberate, consistent training. Not once in a while, not only when inspiration strikes or motivation burns bright, but every single day. Consistent, focused training is the invisible force that separates the average from the extraordinary, the wishful thinker from the impactful doer. And here is the crucial part most people forget, the part that holds immense potential for you. Your mind responds to training even faster and more profoundly than your muscles do. It gets sharper with intellectual challenges. It grows stronger with focused repetition. It expands its capacity when you deliberately push its limits. But this is not an accidental process. You must train it on purpose, with a clear design, not by chance or circumstance. Consider the meticulous regimen of an athlete for a moment. They do not show up to practice only when life feels easy or when they feel energized. They do not quit because a workout is uncomfortable or because their emotions tell them to. Their plan is not based on fleeting feelings. They follow a meticulously structured program. They warm up, stretch, strengthen, condition, recover, and then they repeat, day in and day out. They adhere to this routine not because they enjoy every single moment. In fact, many moments are pure grind, but because they understand that the routine, the consistent, often monotonous effort, is what inevitably creates the desired result. That precisely is how you need to treat your mind. You need a routine, a mental discipline, a structured approach, not rigid to the point of breaking, but consistent enough to build momentum. Not exhausting to the point of burnout, but intentional enough to foster growth. When you train your mind daily, you begin to build mental stamina. Just as your body experiences fatigue after prolonged physical exertion, your mind becomes tired after extended periods of deep focus, grappling with difficult decisions, navigating emotional challenges, or enduring high-pressure situations. But here is a fundamental difference between you, the aspiring builder of a superhuman mind, and everyone else. While most people allow their minds to collapse, scatter, or become overwhelmed when they feel tired, you will train yours to stay steady, stay clear, and remain in control even when the pressure rises to seemingly unbearable levels. That is what makes a person mentally unbeatable, a true master of their internal landscape. So how exactly do you train your mind like an athlete trains their body? You begin with small, simple daily challenges. These are not grand, intimidating feats, but manageable activities that gently stretch your thinking. Tasks that incrementally improve your focus, situations that push you just slightly beyond your current comfort zone. The key is not drama, it is consistency. Perhaps you commit to reading a few pages of a powerful, thought-provoking book every morning before the digital world clamors for your attention. Maybe you sit in silence for just 5 minutes each day, consciously practicing the control of your attention, redirecting wandering thoughts back to your breath or a single point of focus. Yes, just 5 minutes. The perceived simplicity often masks its profound power. Or perhaps you undertake one small task every day that feels a little uncomfortable. Something that forces your brain to adapt, problem solve, and respond. Little things, consistently applied, matter immensely. They build mental strength, layer by layer, neural pathway by neural pathway. Then you strategically add deliberate difficulty. This is not stress for the sake of stress, but challenge for the sake of growth. Just as muscles require resistance to tear and rebuild stronger, your mind needs obstacles to expand its capacity. You grow mentally, not when you avoid problems, but when you actively solve them. You grow when you take full responsibility instead of running from it. You grow when you deal with pressure, not by breaking under it, but by standing firm and navigating through it. Every challenge you encounter becomes a mental workout. Every setback transforms into a training session. Every tough moment becomes an invaluable chance to strengthen the most powerful tool you possess, your mind. And here is something critically important that many ambitious people overlook. Athletes do not only train hard, they train smart, and they prioritize rest. They'll focus on recovery, and they fuel their bodies with the right things. Your mind demands the same meticulous care. Rest is not a weakness. It is an integral, non-negotiable part of the training. Silence is part of the training. Unplugging from the digital noise, reflecting on your experiences, and giving yourself ample space to simply think and process. These are all vital components of the mental training process. A tired, overstimulated mind cannot perform at its peak. Forcing yourself to push without adequate rest does not create brilliance. It leads inevitably to burnout, diminished creativity, and impaired decision-making. So allow your mind to breathe. Let it recharge, not as an indulgence, but as a strategic investment, so it can return stronger, clearer, and more capable. Training your mind also fundamentally requires repetition. You do not become mentally disciplined by doing something once. You become disciplined by doing it over and over until the intentional effort becomes your new default, an automatic response. That is how profound mental habits are formed. And when the right habits of focus, clarity, and resilience become automatic, your life begins to change naturally, almost effortlessly. You shift from struggling against yourself to flowing with your highest intentions. And let us talk about something many people ignore, something that is a cornerstone of this journey: confidence. That deep-seated confidence comes from training, not from luck, not from inherent talent, and certainly not from positive thinking alone. Confidence is built in precisely the same way physical strength is built. Through repetition, through sustained effort, through showing yourself again and again what you are truly capable of handling. Every time you finish something difficult, even a small task that you wanted to abandon, your mind whispers, "See, you can do more than you think." And that whisper, initially faint, grows louder every day, every week, every month, until it becomes the undeniable, authoritative voice that leads your life. So train your mind deliberately. Train it consistently. Train it with the unwavering focus and dedication you would apply if you were preparing for the most important performance of your life. Because you are. Your life is that performance. Your decisions, your discipline, your focus, your resilience. These are your victories, your achievements, your legacy. When you truly begin treating your mind like an athlete treats their body, something profound shifts within you. You do not fear challenges anymore. You actively seek them, recognizing them as opportunities for growth. You do not avoid discomfort. You leverage it as a catalyst for expansion. You do not passively wait for strength to appear. You actively build it slowly, steadily, intentionally, knowing that every effort compounds. This, my friend, is how you rise above the ordinary. This is how you develop a mind so strong, so trained, so conditioned that doubt has no place left to land. And when you train long enough and consistently enough, what once felt impossible becomes your new baseline, your new normal. That is when you know you are no longer merely trying to build a superhuman mind. You are living with one, inhabiting its power and expressing its capabilities in every aspect of your existence. Chapter 3. Eliminate mental noise and strengthen your focus. If there is one singular skill that definitively separates a scattered, overwhelmed mind from a superhuman mind, it is focus. It is the profound ability to lock in, to center yourself, to direct your attention with unwavering purpose, instead of passively allowing it to be pulled and fractured in every conceivable direction. And here is the stark, undeniable truth. You simply cannot build a powerful, impactful life if your mind is constantly distracted, perpetually buzzing with fragmented thoughts and external demands. You cannot build genuine momentum if your thoughts are always jumping from one thing to another, never settling long enough to create depth or mastery. Focus is not merely a desirable trait. It is the absolute gateway to clarity, to profound productivity, to unshakable confidence, and even to a deep, abiding inner peace. But focus, like all great strengths, does not magically appear. It is not a gift bestowed upon a lucky few. You have to actively create it, to cultivate it with intentionality, primarily by relentlessly eliminating the pervasive mental noise that slowly, insidiously eats away at your precious attention, drains your vital energy, and ultimately stifles your boundless potential. Let us begin with an honest, introspective question. How often do you feel mentally overloaded? Not physically tired from exertion, but mentally exhausted. Your mind buzzing an incessant cacophony of too many thoughts, too many inputs, too many worries, too many unfinished tasks vying for your attention. That precisely is mental noise. And mental noise, in its many insidious forms, is the number one enemy of focus. It drains your mental reserves. It scatters your intellectual and emotional energy. It keeps you perpetually busy, yet profoundly unproductive. It creates the illusion that you are working hard, that you are making progress, but in reality, you are merely reacting to external stimuli, not directing your own inner world. You are being driven by circumstances, not steering your own ship. But you, dear listener, are here because you are ready to operate differently. You are ready to reclaim control of your most precious resource, your attention, and build a mind that listens when you speak to it, a mind that bends to your will. So, let us break down this crucial process. Eliminating mental noise begins with a rigorous self-assessment, recognizing precisely where your attention leaks. And the biggest, most prevalent leak for most people in our hyper-connected modern world is constant stimulation. We are besieged by notifications, trapped in endless scrolling through digital feeds, accustomed to constant switching between tasks, checking our phones every few minutes as an unconscious reflex. These behaviors, seemingly innocuous, are actively training your mind to be unfocused. You are, in essence, conditioning your brain to crave distractions, teaching it that it does not have to stay with one thought or one task for long. And over time, this insidious conditioning dramatically weakens your inherent ability to concentrate. You might feel connected, but you are not connected to your deepest goals or your highest purpose. You are connected to noise, to superficiality, to the fleeting and the trivial. To truly strengthen your focus, you need to deliberately reverse this conditioning. You need to teach your mind to stay, to dive deeper into a single subject instead of jumping away at the slightest provocation. And that profound re-education begins with intentional silence, not hours of monastic silence, but just a few minutes each day where you sit without any external stimulation. No phone, no talking, no music, no podcasts, no noise, just breathing, just being. Just witnessing your own thoughts without judgment. At first, it will feel profoundly uncomfortable, perhaps even boring or irritating, because your mind is accustomed to chaos, to constant input. But stay with it. That discomfort, that internal resistance, is actually your brain detoxing. It is the shedding of accumulated noise, the recalibration of your inner landscape. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the fertile vacuum that pulls clarity in. Next, simplify your mental environment. Most people carry around an excessive number of open loops in their minds. These are unfinished tasks, unresolved decisions, unorganized thoughts, looming obligations, unexpressed emotions. Every single open loop consumes a precious piece of your mental processing space, quietly running in the background, draining your cognitive battery. And when you have too many of these loops, sustained focus becomes nearly impossible. The elegant solution: perform a mental reset. Take the time to write down everything that is cluttering your mind. Get it out of your head and onto paper, into a digital document, or onto a whiteboard. When you externalize the noise, your mind can finally breathe again. You do not have to solve everything immediately. The goal is simply to remove the crushing weight of carrying it all internally. Another incredibly powerful way to eliminate mental noise and bolster focus is deceptively simple. Do one thing at a time. Not two, not five, but one. Multitasking, as popularly conceived, is a pervasive lie. Your brain cannot genuinely handle to complex cognitive tasks simultaneously. All it does is switch rapidly between them, incurring a switching cost that burns immense mental energy, significantly lowers your depth of focus, and drastically reduces the quality of your thinking and output. When you consciously choose one task and commit to giving it your full, undivided attention, something incredible happens. Your mind becomes sharper. You enter a state of flow, a profound immersion where time seems to disappear. You feel present, engaged, and you finish what you start with superior quality. That singular shift alone will profoundly transform your life. Let us talk about something else that significantly contributes to mental noise: your inner dialogue. Your self-talk can either be a source of constant mental noise or a conduit for profound mental clarity. If your inner voice perpetually jumps between fears, anxieties, endless what-ifs, self-defeating comparisons, and ruminations on past mistakes, how can you possibly expect to focus on the task at hand, on the present moment, or on your future goals? You simply cannot. So, begin the deliberate, consistent training of your inner voice. When your thoughts start spiraling into unproductive noise, pause, take a deep, conscious breath, replace the internal static with a simple, firm directive. Focus on what matters now. Repeat that again and again. Over time, your mind, like a well-trained servant, listens. Your mind obeys. It learns to align with your intentional direction. And here is the deeper, more profound truth. Focus is not merely about attention. It is fundamentally about energy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And where your energy flows, your life, your creations, your impact grow. If your attention is scattered, your energy is dissipated, ineffective. If your attention is disciplined and directed, your energy becomes a concentrated, unstoppable force. That is why truly focused people move faster, achieve more, stay calmer under pressure, and experience a deeper sense of fulfillment. Their minds are aligned. Their energy is directed with purpose. Nothing is wasted. You also need boundaries. Real, non-negotiable boundaries. The kind that fiercely protect your mental space. Turn off unnecessary notifications on all your devices. Limit your exposure to negativity, whether it is fear-based news, toxic social media, or draining conversations. Actively reduce the time you spend with people who consistently deplete your energy rather than uplift it. Guard your mind with the same vigilance and care you would apply to something irreplaceable and precious. Because your mind is precious. It is the engine that powers everything you do, everything you become. Protect it fiercely, for your liberty of thought depends on it. Now let me give you a simple yet often overlooked truth. Focus grows with practice. It is a muscle that strengthens with every conscious repetition. The mental effort that feels difficult today will become natural and effortless tomorrow. What feels impossible or overwhelming next week will, through consistent application, become your new baseline, your new normal. You are literally reshaping the way your brain works, carving new neural pathways that prioritize depth and concentration. You are mastering your attention. You are lowering the noise and dramatically raising the clarity. And the moment clarity truly rises, everything in your life becomes easier. Your decisions become sharper, your goals more attainable, your emotional responses more measured, your entire life experience more deliberate and fulfilling. A superhuman mind is not louder. It is louder. It is not filled with chaos. It is organized with elegant simplicity. It is not easily distracted. It is intensely intentional. You do not need a million thoughts. You need the right thoughts. You do not need more noise. You need more focus. And the more consistently you eliminate the noise, the more your true potential, your inherent genius, comes into clear, unobstructed view. The more you train your focus, the more powerful and liberated your mind becomes. Eventually, you will look back and realize something profoundly important. You did not just eliminate mental noise. You reclaimed your mind. You took back control of your most vital asset. And now, armed with this newfound clarity, you get to consciously decide where your attention goes, where your energy flows, and precisely how your extraordinary future grows. Chapter 4. Upgrade your thoughts before you upgrade your life. Every profound and lasting transformation begins not in the external world, but in the sanctuary of your mind. It takes root there long before it manifests in your actions, your habits, or your tangible results. And that, my friend, is the critical insight most people profoundly misunderstand. They attempt to fix their lives by relentlessly working harder, pushing more, grinding longer, or chasing external achievements. Yet they rarely, if ever, take the time to deeply examine and challenge the very thoughts that created their current life, their current reality, in the first place. You simply cannot upgrade your life if you are operating with outdated, limiting thinking. You cannot truly reach a higher level of existence, of impact, of fulfillment, if your thoughts are still stuck in the old patterns, the old narratives, the old paradigms. Your thoughts are the command center of your entire being. They direct how you feel, how you act, and ultimately what you allow into your life and what you steadfastly reject. So if you genuinely desire deep and lasting change, that transformation unequivocally begins with upgrading the way you think. Your thoughts, in their essence, create the unique lens through which you perceive and interpret the world. If that lens is cloudy, smudged with limiting beliefs and negative biases, then everything you behold looks distorted. Opportunities that gleam brightly for others appear risky and unattainable to you. Grand goals that inspire some look impossible and overwhelming. Failure, an inevitable part of growth, appears permanent, a definitive end rather than a temporary detour. But when you consciously clean that lens, when you meticulously upgrade your thoughts, everything becomes clearer, sharper, more vibrant. You begin seeing possibilities where you once only saw insurmountable obstacles. You start recognizing inherent strengths within yourself where you once perceived only crippling limitations. You start believing in steady, deliberate progress where you once only anticipated endless struggle. That profound shift is not magic. It is not luck. It is not a mystical intervention. It is a natural, inevitable outcome of changing the root system of your being, not just trimming the visible branches. Think about it like updating the operating system of a computer. If an outdated system attempts to run modern, complex software, it freezes, it crashes, it slows down to a crawl. It simply cannot keep up with the demands of the new. The same precise dynamic happens to you. You are trying to reach new heights, to embody a more expansive version of yourself, with old, limiting thinking, and that creates immense mental friction. It creates patterns of self-sabotage, that unconscious resistance to your own progress. It creates a gaping chasm between what you intellectually want and what you subconsciously believe you deserve. And that chasm, that internal misalignment, stops progress every single time. Upgrading your thoughts closes that gap. It rewrites the internal script. It aligns your inner world, your beliefs, your values, your self-image. What is the extraordinary life you are striving to build on the outside? So how do you practically and effectively upgrade your thoughts? You begin by becoming acutely aware of them. Awareness is not just a preliminary step. It is the first, most powerful act of transformation. Most people navigate through life on mental autopilot, passively allowing thoughts to appear and then simply accepting them as objective truths, without question, without scrutiny. But you are not most people. You are actively building a superhuman mind. That means paying meticulous attention to the endless stream of thoughts that courses through your head every single day. Thoughts like, I cannot do this, or this always happens to me, or I am not ready, or the insidious, what if I fail? These thoughts, often appearing benign or insignificant, are anything but. They fundamentally shape your reality. They establish your perceived limits. They define your identity. And they absolutely need to be challenged. The moment you catch an old, limiting thought, pause, breathe, question it. Ask yourself with genuine curiosity, with a detached perspective, is this thought truly helping me grow or is it merely holding me back? If, upon honest reflection, you determine it is holding you back, do not let it linger. Do not engage in a mental debate with it. Replace it, not with empty, superficial positivity, the kind that feels disingenuous, but with truthful, powerful, constructive thinking. Thoughts like, I can learn this, and I will, instead of I cannot do this. Or, I have handled difficult things before and I emerge stronger, instead of this always happens to me. Or, I am capable of profound growth, instead of I am not ready. Or, I can figure it out, step by step, instead of what if I fail? These thoughts do not deny the reality of a challenge. Instead, they elevate your relationship with that reality. They empower you to move forward, to adapt, to innovate, instead of staying paralyzed and stuck. Another vital component of upgrading your mind is upgrading your interpretations. When something difficult, unexpected, or seemingly negative happens in your life, your interpretation of that event determines your subsequent emotional and behavioral outcome. Most people, faced with adversity, reflexively ask, "Why me?" or declare, "This is bad," or assert, "This should not be happening." This reactive interpretation creates victimhood and paralysis. But people with upgraded thoughts, people building superhuman minds, ask different questions. They inquire, "What is this teaching me?" Or, "How is this experience shaping me for a greater purpose?" Or, "What valuable insight or strength can I extract from this situation?" Same situation, completely different interpretation, leading to a profoundly different path. Challenges are transformed into opportunities for training. Setbacks become foundational stones for future success. Problems are reframed as invaluable lessons. That is the hallmark of a superhuman mind's thinking, not because life is inherently easier for them, but because their thinking is demonstrably stronger, more adaptable, and more aligned with growth. You also upgrade your thoughts by meticulously upgrading your input. Your mind is a mirror. It relentlessly reflects whatever you feed it. If you consistently consume negativity, drama, fear-based news, and low-value information, your thinking will inevitably fall into those same disempowering patterns. If you habitually surround yourself with small thinkers, people who gossip, complain, or shrink from ambition, you will, by osmosis, begin to think small yourself. If you constantly absorb messages rooted in fear, scarcity, or limitation, your mind will unconsciously operate from that same fear-based paradigm. To truly upgrade your life, you must become ruthlessly intentional about what enters your mind. Read books that challenge you, that stretch your intellect, that expand your perspective. Listen to voices that uplift you, that inspire growth, that embody wisdom. Spend intentional time with ideas that elevate your consciousness and expand your potential. Make mental nutrition a non-negotiable priority, because what you feed your mind literally becomes how you think, how you perceive, how you create. There is another truth you need to hear, one that underpins the philosophy of personal liberty. Your thoughts must match the future you want, not the past you have lived. You cannot expect to keep thinking like the old you, the version defined by past limitations, if you genuinely expect to become the next, more evolved version of yourself. The old thoughts, the familiar narratives, may feel comfortable, safe, even inherent. But familiar does not mean helpful. Familiar does not mean right. Familiar simply means repeated. And repetition, conscious or unconscious, is precisely what created your old identity, your current mental programming. And now, with intentionality and courage, it is time to repeat better thoughts, stronger thoughts, thoughts that unequivocally serve your future, your highest aspirations, not the limiting echoes of your history. As you consistently upgrade your thinking, you will notice something profoundly interesting and deeply encouraging. Your behavior starts to shift naturally, almost effortlessly. You find yourself procrastinating less because your thoughts are no longer filled with paralyzing fear or debilitating doubt. You take more decisive action because your thoughts now tell you with quiet certainty that you are capable. You remain calmer, more composed under pressure, because your thoughts consistently remind you that you are learning, you are growing, you are adapting. You show up differently in the world. You speak differently. You carry yourself with a newfound gravitas. The outer transformation you desire becomes the inevitable reflection of the inner transformation you have meticulously cultivated. Building a superhuman mind is not about achieving perfect thoughts. That is an unrealistic and unnecessary pursuit. It is about having intentional thoughts. It is about consciously choosing thoughts that align with your deepest goals, your highest values, and your desired identity, instead of passively allowing old, disempowering habits to run the show. And the more consistently you practice this conscious choice, the more automatic it becomes. Slowly, steadily, deliberately, your mind evolves, becoming a powerful ally rather than an internal saboteur. And when your mind evolves, and when your inner world is recalibrated and refined, your entire life follows suit, every single time, with unwavering certainty. This is the essence of mental liberty, choosing your own thoughts and through them, shaping your own destiny. Chapter 5. Build emotional power, not emotional weakness. If there is one area where individuals unknowingly relinquish the most strength, where vast reservoirs of potential leak away, it is not in their intelligence, their physical prowess, or their innate discipline. It is, undeniably, in their emotions. Most people navigate their lives without fully realizing how much of their power is seated because their emotions are, in essence, driving the ship rather than being under the deliberate, intentional control of a calm, clear mind. They react too quickly, without pause or reflection. They become overwhelmed too easily, allowing external circumstances to dictate their internal state. They take things too personally, internalizing every slight or criticism. They cling to frustration, anger, or resentment for far longer than serves them. And day by day, choice by choice, these unconscious emotional habits subtly yet profoundly weaken the mind, eroding its capacity for sustained focus, strategic thinking, and resilient action. But you, dear listener, are here to build a superhuman mind, and that grand aspiration unequivocally requires emotional power. Real, authentic emotional power, not merely pretending to be strong, not suppressing or pushing down genuine feelings, but learning how to master your emotional world so that it becomes your greatest asset, your most potent advantage, rather than an unpredictable, uncontrollable enemy. Let us start with something beautifully simple, yet profoundly impactful. Emotional power begins with awareness. You cannot control what you do not first recognize. Most people experience an emotion and react instantly, reflexively. A surge of anger instantaneously morphs into an argument or a cutting remark. A wave of fear manifests as hesitation, paralysis, or avoidance. A whisper of insecurity transmutes into a pattern of self-sabotage. But emotionally powerful individuals, those who have cultivated a superhuman mind, do something fundamentally different. They pause. They observe. They consciously create a small, deliberate space between the initial feeling and their subsequent response. That space, that intentional gap, is everything. That space, however brief, is precisely where your true power resides. When you grant yourself even a moment, a mere breath, to notice what you are genuinely feeling, without judgment or immediate action, you gain the profound ability to choose your response rather than defaulting to old, ingrained, often destructive patterns. And choosing your response rather than simply reacting is the absolute key, because emotional weakness is inherently reactive, a passive recipient of external stimuli. But emotional power is intentional, a conscious act of internal self-governance. Emotional weakness permits the world, its events, its people, to decide how you feel. Emotional power, on the other hand, grants you the sovereignty to decide how you feel, how you interpret, and how you respond. This does not mean you shut off your emotions, becoming cold or numb or detached. Quite the opposite. It means you allow yourself to feel things fully, deeply, authentically, without being controlled or consumed by them. It means you can experience the full spectrum of human emotions, disappointment, frustration, pressure, and even profound pain, without losing your inner clarity, your composure, or your sense of self. You are the observer, not merely the experiencer. Now, emotional power also critically requires understanding your triggers. Every single human being has them. These are specific words, particular situations, lingering memories, or deep-seated insecurities that can instantly pull you into a vortex of emotional chaos. But a trigger, fundamentally, is not a problem to be avoided or suppressed. A trigger is invaluable information. A trigger shows you with pinpoint accuracy precisely where your emotional work needs to be done. Instead of avoiding triggers or pretending they do not exist or reacting defensively to them, study them with a detached curiosity. Ask yourself, why does this specific thing affect me so much? What underlying belief is connected to this powerful feeling? What old story am I telling myself in this moment? When you bring conscious awareness to your triggers, when you illuminate them with the light of understanding, they begin to lose their insidious grip. They stop being automatic, non-conscious reactions. They cease being stronger than you. You learn instead to respond with clarity and intention, rather than blindly reacting with raw emotion. Another crucially important part of building emotional power is embracing emotional responsibility. This means taking full, unequivocal ownership of your emotional state instead of habitually blaming others or external circumstances for how you feel. Weak minds, trapped in a reactive paradigm, will say, "You made me angry," or "They stressed me out." Strong minds, those cultivating emotional power, frame it differently. They say, "I felt anger, and I chose how to respond," or "I felt stress, and I actively managed it." Weak minds wait for the world to behave perfectly, for people to conform to their expectations, so that they can feel okay. Strong minds, however, actively create and maintain stability within themselves, regardless of external chaos. Emotional responsibility does not mean that other people's actions cannot affect you. It means they do not control you. That subtle yet profound shift changes everything. It grants you genuine internal freedom. It bestows upon you an unshakable inner strength. It cultivates the emotional independence you need to rise to the next, higher version of yourself. Let us delve into another profound aspect of emotional power: learning to sit with discomfort. Most emotional weakness stems from a habitual avoidance of uncomfortable feelings: fear, sadness, frustration, anxiety, uncertainty. We have been conditioned to seek immediate relief, to distract, to numb, to escape. But paradoxically, when you avoid discomfort, you strengthen its hold over you. When you run from a feeling, it grows in power. It pursues you. It subtly, or not so subtly, shapes your decisions and limits your life. However, when you bravely face discomfort, when you breathe through it, when you stay present with it, and allow yourself to feel, without running or resisting, you become profoundly stronger. Train your mind to handle emotional weight in precisely the same way you train your muscles to handle physical weight. You lift it, you hold it, you grow from it. Each instance of conscious endurance builds a new layer of emotional fortitude. Emotional strength is also meticulously built by choosing your perspective. This is a powerful act of mental liberty. Why? Because emotion is often a direct response to your interpretation of a situation, not the objective reality of the situation itself. Consider this. Two individuals can face the exact same challenging situation and experience completely different emotional responses, purely because their interpretations are divergent. One sees rejection. The other sees redirection, a necessary pivot. One sees a devastating failure. The other sees invaluable feedback, a critical lesson. One sees an irreparable loss. The other sees an opportunity for profound learning. When you learn to control the story you attach to a situation, the narrative you choose to believe, you gain immense control over the emotional experience that follows. And that skill, the conscious ability to choose a helpful, empowering perspective, has the power to reshape your entire life. And let us be unequivocally clear. Emotional power does not mean you never break down. It does not mean you never struggle or feel overwhelmed or experience moments of profound grief or fear. Emotional power means that you do not stay broken. You do not stay stuck in the emotional quagmire. You do not permit temporary, transient feelings to dictate permanent, life-altering decisions. You acknowledge the emotion, you breathe through it, you process it, and you consciously, deliberately rise above it. A superhuman mind is not built by avoiding emotions, but by courageously mastering them. It is built by stabilizing yourself, becoming an unshakable anchor when the world around you feels unstable and chaotic. It is built by responding with clear, strategic intention when chaos desperately tries to pull you into its vortex. It is built by being grounded, steady, and deliberate, even when your feelings are loud, intense, and demanding. You are capable of this emotional power. You are capable of controlling your reactions. You are capable of feeling deeply, authentically, without being consumed or overwhelmed. And every time you practice emotional awareness, emotional responsibility, emotional patience, and emotional courage, you strengthen the part of you that nothing can shake. That, my friend, is true emotional power, a cornerstone of building the extraordinary mind you are actively creating right now. Chapter 6. First, courage to think independently. One of the most profoundly liberating and powerful shifts you can ever make in your life is learning to think for yourself. not merely to think privately or to quietly harbor unspoken opinions, but to think independently, courageously, unapologetically, without needing the world's approval or external validation to legitimize your thoughts. Most people tragically never fully embark on this journey. They follow the crowd, echoing popular opinions, adopting beliefs without critical scrutiny, moving with the majority because it feels inherently safe, comfortable, and socially acceptable. But understand this fundamental truth of liberty. Safety is not strength. Safety is not genuine growth. And safety, in this context, is certainly not freedom. If you truly aspire to a superhuman mind, a mind that creates, innovates, and leads, it must be willing to stand alone in your thinking, long before any external results or popular acclaim prove you right. Independent thinking is by no means easy. It demands courage, real, visceral courage. Because the moment you dare to think differently, to question the prevailing narratives, you risk being misunderstood, misjudged, and even ostracized. You risk stepping outside the comforting embrace of agreement and consensus. And that precisely is where most people freeze. They silence their unique insights. They shrink their ambitions. They choose the ephemeral comfort of conformity over the enduring truth of their own convictions. But internalize this truth with unwavering clarity. Every single extraordinary life, every innovation, every paradigm shift, every act of profound impact is built on the back of unpopular decisions, unconventional thoughts, and the unyielding willingness to trust your own discerning mind, even when nobody else, absolutely nobody, sees what you see. Thinking independently starts with a rigorous examination of your assumptions. Not everything you grew up believing is inherently true. Not every opinion you unconsciously absorbed is accurate. Not every fact you have carried with you is based on a solid foundation of reality. Your mind, in its default state, is often a repository of beliefs that were handed to you by your environment, your culture, your family, your education, your past experiences. But those beliefs were often formed without your conscious permission, without your active vetting. Now, as the architect of your superhuman mind, you get to decide what stays and what does not. You get to consciously choose what aligns with the person you are powerfully becoming and what must be shed. That is the first crucial step to independence, intentional thinking rather than inherited thinking. Another vital component of independent thinking is learning to deeply trust your inner voice, your intuition, your instincts, those subtle insights that often precede logical understanding. We possess these internal guidance systems for a reason. You have the inherent ability to sense direction, opportunity, and even danger long before the external world catches up. But if you are constantly drowning in noise, the cacophony of other people's opinions, the endless debates online, the relentless pressure of social expectations, you will never hear your own voice clearly. And if you never hear your own voice, if you perpetually outsource your discernment, you will inevitably end up living someone else's life, fulfilling someone else's dreams, rather than crafting your own unique destiny. Independent thinkers do not ignore valuable advice or external information, but they also do not depend on it for their ultimate conclusions. They meticulously gather information. They listen attentively to diverse perspectives, but they ultimately form their own deeply considered conclusions. They listen, but they decide for themselves. And let us be unequivocally clear. Independent thinking does not imply isolating yourself from others or blindly rejecting every idea that is not spontaneously generated by your own mind. That is not independence. That is intellectual arrogance or stubbornness. True independent thinking means evaluating ideas, all ideas, instead of unconsciously absorbing them. It means rigorously using your own judgment, your own critical faculties, rather than outsourcing them to others. However authoritative they may seem, independent thinkers are open-minded, intellectually curious, but ultimately self-directed. They learn from everyone, from every source, but they follow no one blindly. No dogma, no prevailing narrative. To strengthen this invaluable skill, you must actively practice asking better questions. Great thinkers, philosophers, scientists, and innovators throughout history do not merely accept what they see or hear at face value. They dig deeper. They ask, why? They ask, what else is possible? They inquire, is this truly, objectively true? or merely a widely accepted assumption. They ponder, does this make intrinsic sense for me, for my values, for my path? They demand, what credible evidence actually supports this claim? And they strategically consider, what are the long-term, perhaps unforeseen, consequences of this belief or action? Questions are the profound tools that unlock a mind. Questions reveal deeper truths. Questions, applied with curiosity and rigor, powerfully separate the true thinker from the passive follower. The world is filled with people who consciously or unconsciously want to be told what to think, what to believe, what to desire. A superhuman mind, committed to its own liberty, staunchly refuses the intellectual servitude. It chooses curiosity over obedience. It chooses depth and critical inquiry over superficial convenience. Independent thinking also, and perhaps most crucially, requires immense emotional strength. Why? Because the act of thinking differently, of holding a unique perspective, often triggers resistance, discomfort, and even hostility from others. People may question your motives. Some may vehemently disagree with you. Some may resort to mockery or outright criticism. And this pushback often occurs not because you are inherently wrong, but because your independence, your intellectual autonomy, unwittingly exposes their own dependence, their own unexamined conformity. Most people consciously or unconsciously prefer conformity because it absolves them of the demanding burden of individual accountability. When you bravely break away from that herd mentality, you implicitly remind them of the intellectual and personal freedom they are afraid to claim for themselves. And sometimes their response to that internal discomfort manifests as external pushback or even attack. That is precisely why courage is not merely desirable, but absolutely essential. You must cultivate the unwavering willingness to continue thinking for yourself, to stand by your convictions even when others do not understand, do not agree, or actively try to pull you back into the folds of conventional thought. Here is another truth, a timeless piece of wisdom. Independent thinking consistently leads to better, more aligned decisions. Always. When you make a decision based primarily on someone else's opinions, advice, or expectations, you and only you have to live with the full consequences while they, unburdened, move on with their lives. But when a decision originates from your own hard-won clarity, your own meticulous judgment, whether that decision proves right or wrong in hindsight, you grow immeasurably from it. You learn invaluable lessons. You evolve into a more discerning, more capable individual. And over time, your cultivated ability to make strong, autonomous decisions becomes one of your greatest, most reliable strengths. Genuine confidence, the kind that endures, comes from seeing your own judgment, your own unique reasoning, effectively work itself out in the real world. One of the most powerful and accessible ways to practice independent thinking is to deliberately spend time alone with your ideas. No distractions, no external voices, no social media feeds, no background noise, just you and your thoughts in quiet, deliberate reflection. When you think without external influence, without the unconscious pressure to conform, you begin to truly understand what you genuinely believe, what profoundly matters to you, and what direction deep in your soul truly feels right for you. Solitude, in this context, is not loneliness. Loneliness is the painful absence of connection. Solitude, by contrast, is the empowering presence of yourself. It is the fertile ground where your deepest ideas surface, where profound clarity lives, where your unique genius whispers its truths. Independent thinking also implies being comfortable with being early. Sometimes you will perceive things, opportunities, dangers, or future trends before others do. You will hold a conviction, a belief in yourself or a vision, long before others are willing to believe in you. You will sense opportunities that others, blinded by convention or fear, completely overlook. That is the inherent nature of independent thought. It is often ahead of the crowd, and most people, by their very nature, cannot imagine what they have not yet seen, cannot believe what has not yet been proven. But your job, as the architect of a superhuman mind, is not to convince them. Your job is to trust your own mind enough to cultivate enough inner conviction, to walk the path, to build the future before the results are visible, before the applause arrives. That is courage. That is leadership, not of others initially, but of yourself. That is precisely how extraordinary lives are built, forged in the crucible of intellectual liberty. You possess the inherent ability to think independently. You have the dormant, or perhaps awakening, courage to question, to choose, to decide, to trust your own unique reasoning. And the more you consciously lean into this profound capacity, the stronger, more liberated, and more influential your mind becomes. You cease to merely follow. You begin, first and foremost, to lead yourself, your life, your decisions, your destiny, and eventually, through the power of your example, perhaps others too. Independent thinking is not just a skill. It is a fundamental doorway to personal sovereignty. And once you bravely step through it, your entire world, your inner and outer reality, begins to expand with boundless possibility. Chapter 7. Turn discipline into your superpower. Let me tell you something that might completely shift the way you think about discipline. Most people treat discipline like punishment, like something that takes away their freedom, like a strict parent standing over them saying, "You have to do this whether you like it or not." And honestly, if that is how you see discipline, no wonder it feels exhausting. No wonder you resist it. No wonder it never sticks. But what if I told you that discipline is not the opposite of freedom? What if I told you that discipline is the doorway to freedom? That the most free, the most empowered, the most in control people you have ever seen got there not by doing whatever they felt like, but by doing what mattered most consistently, even when they did not feel like it. Have you ever met someone who just seems to have their life together? Not perfect, but organized. Not robotic, but reliable. They show up. They follow through. They do not make excuses. And you look at them and think they must have been born with some kind of superhuman willpower. But here is the secret nobody tells you. They were not born with more willpower than you. They just built better systems. They designed their daily life in a way that makes the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder. They do not rely on motivation, because they know motivation is a guest that shows up unannounced and leaves without saying goodbye. They rely on structure. And structure, my friend, is the skeleton that discipline grows around. Let me break this down into something real. Discipline is nothing more and nothing less than a collection of small promises you keep with yourself. That is it. Wake up when you said you would. Complete the task you committed to doing. Follow through on the plan you thoughtfully devised when your mind was clear. These are not grand, intimidating vows. They are small, manageable promises. But each one, when kept, builds a stronger self-identity. Each one builds profound inner trust. Every single time you keep a promise to yourself, however minor, your mind becomes stronger, more reliable, more aligned with your intentions. Conversely, every time you break one, you subtly weaken that vital inner trust, eroding your self-belief. And a superhuman mind, a mind of unshakable strength, is built on a bedrock of unwavering self-trust. Discipline is the primary tool by which you create and reinforce that trust. Another important aspect of cultivating discipline is to relentlessly remove the destructive idea that you need to be perfect. The pursuit of perfection, ironically, often destroys discipline, because the moment you inevitably slip up, as all humans do, you feel like a catastrophic failure. And when you feel like you have completely failed, the natural tendency is to quit entirely, to abandon the effort. But discipline is not, and never has been, about perfection. Discipline is about consistency. It is the unwavering commitment to getting back on track, to returning to the path every single time you fall, without shame, without guilt, without unnecessary drama. Just a quiet, determined return to the process. The ability to restart quickly, to self-correct and re-engage, is far more important and powerful than the elusive, unsustainable ability to remain perfect. You also need to understand the often overlooked emotional side of discipline. Most of the resistance you feel when attempting to be disciplined is not physical. It is almost entirely mental and emotional. The mind, programmed for comfort and immediate gratification, whispers, "I do not want to do this." It suggests, "Do it tomorrow. You are tired." And because the mind, in its default state, prioritizes comfort first, we learn to habitually negotiate with ourselves, to rationalize avoidance. But internal negotiation is the stealthy enemy of discipline. So here is a powerful rule to integrate into your mental operating system. When you make a conscious decision to do something, execute it without reopening the negotiation. Remove the internal debate. Eliminate the back and forth rationalizations. When you unequivocally say you will do it, it is final. That simple shift, applied consistently, will profoundly transform your consistency and elevate your discipline. Another highly effective way to make discipline flow easier, less arduous, is to strategically lower the entry point. Many people fail in their pursuit of discipline because they start too big, too ambitiously. They try to do everything at once, attempting to go from 0 to 100 overnight. That is not how sustainable discipline works. Discipline, like a muscle, grows incrementally from small, manageable actions, meticulously repeated daily. Want to read more? Start with just 5 minutes. Want to exercise? Begin with 10 minutes. Want to write? Commit to 1 paragraph. Small, almost laughably easy steps strategically remove initial resistance. And once the habit is firmly formed, once the neural pathway is established, you will naturally and effortlessly expand upon it. Think small to grow big. Now let us talk about something people rarely acknowledge, but is deeply true. Discipline bestows upon you profound identity power. When you consistently act with discipline, when you consistently follow through on your commitments to yourself, you begin seeing yourself differently. You start to internalize the belief, I am the kind of person who follows through. That profound identity shift is far more valuable and enduring than any external reward or fleeting recognition. Because once you genuinely see yourself as a disciplined person, your decisions, your choices, your behaviors automatically begin to align with that potent new identity. You no longer need to force yourself through sheer willpower. You simply act like the person you profoundly believe you are. And here is the beautiful, liberating part of this equation. Discipline ultimately creates true freedom. When you are disciplined, you do not live in a state of perpetual chaos. You are not constantly behind schedule, rushing to catch up. You are not perpetually drowning in guilt over things you know you should have done. Instead, you gain genuine control over your time, your energy, and your commitments. And with that foundational control comes unshakable confidence. With confidence comes unstoppable momentum. With momentum comes profound, lasting transformation. But understand this crucial point. Discipline grows slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You will not feel suddenly powerful after one disciplined action. The effects are cumulative. But you will begin to feel powerful after a week of consistency, unstoppable after a month, and unrecognizable, utterly transformed after a year. Discipline compounds. Every small action, every kept promise, every deliberate choice multiplies into something far greater than the sum of its parts. You, dear listener, possess the inherent ability to develop relentless discipline. It does not matter where you are starting from today. It does not matter what your past habits or perceived failures were. What matters profoundly is a conscious choice you make in this very moment, today. The choice to take absolute ownership of your mind and your actions. Every day ask yourself, what small promise will I keep to myself today? Then, with unwavering commitment, keep it. One promise at a time, one intentional action at a time, you will build discipline into the very fabric of your identity. And when discipline becomes who you are, when it is an inherent part of your being, doubt disappears, excuses vanish, self-imposed limits dissolve. Because discipline, true discipline, is the unshakable foundation of a superhuman mind and the ultimate expression of personal liberty. Chapter 8. Feed your mind with high-value knowledge only. Your mind, in its relentless activity, is always consuming something. It is a perpetual processing engine, constantly taking in ideas, absorbing conversations, evaluating opinions, reacting to entertainment, and integrating information. Your mind is being fed every single waking day. And just as your body physically becomes what you consistently eat, your mind intellectually and emotionally becomes what you consistently consume. If you feed it mental junk, superficial content, negativity, trauma, fear-based narratives, he will inevitably get weaker, slower, more confused, and less capable of profound thought. But if you deliberately and consistently feed it high-value knowledge, knowledge that elevates your thinking, sharpens your awareness, expands your perspective, and challenges your assumptions, your mind will become undeniably powerful. Not overnight, but consistently, quietly, and unmistakably powerful. This chapter is about taking absolute conscious control of that profound and vital process. Let us start with a simple but profound truth. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Not your job, not your accumulated skills, not your external opportunities, and certainly not your material possessions. Your mind. Because your mind is the singular, ultimate source of everything you create, everything you overcome, and everything you ultimately become. Yet, most people, ironically, protect their smartphones more carefully than they protect their minds. They allow anything and everything to indiscriminately enter their mental space. Unchecked gossip, pervasive negativity, sensationalized, fear-based news, pointless arguments, shallow entertainment. And then, with genuine bewilderment, they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted, perpetually unfocused, chronically unmotivated, and creatively stifled. Your mind, in its inherent design for growth and clarity, cannot possibly thrive on low-quality input. It demands quality. It requires depth. It craves intellectual and emotional nourishment. And here is the often unacknowledged truth. High-value knowledge is rarely loud. It does not chase you with flashy notifications or scream for your attention in a barrage of clickbait. It is often quiet, subtle, and intentional. It demands effort, curiosity, and discernment to seek out. And that precisely is why most people never genuinely access it. They settle for whatever is easiest to consume, whatever is presented passively, whatever requires the least mental effort. But you, dedicated to building a superhuman mind, understand that this requires a different type of input. Not noise, not fleeting distraction, not mental sugar that offers a quick high followed by an inevitable crash. A superhuman mind seeks input which genuinely challenges you, expands your horizons, and fosters profound growth. One of the most powerful and time-honored ways to meticulously upgrade your mental diet is through books. Books are veritable treasure troves containing the condensed wisdom of lifetimes, the accumulated insights of centuries. They expose you to ideas, perspectives, and ways of thinking that you may never encounter in your everyday environment. They sharpen your critical thinking skills. They expand your vocabulary. They profoundly deepen and broaden your inner world. Reading is not merely information transfer. Reading is a rigorous form of mental training, an active exercise for your brain. Even a mere 10 minutes a day, consistently applied, can dramatically reshape the way you think, perceive, and operate. And when you consciously choose high-quality books, books on psychology, philosophy, history, discipline, self-improvement, leadership, and resilient mindset, you are systematically feeding your mind with ideas that inherently strengthen your core identity and expand your capacity for mental liberty. Another powerful input, often underestimated in its impact, is meaningful conversation. The people you engage with every day, the quality of your dialogues, influence your thoughts and emotional state far more than you consciously realize. If you habitually surround yourself with small thinkers, individuals whose conversations revolve around trivialities, gossip, or perpetual negativity, you will inevitably begin to think small. If you immerse yourself in an environment of negative people, your mind will, by osmosis, absorb that negativity. If you consistently interact with individuals who complain incessantly, criticize others relentlessly, or quit easily, their habits, their outlook, and their limitations will slowly but surely become yours. However, when you deliberately surround yourself with people who challenge you intellectually, who think deeply, who encourage personal growth, and who consistently see possibilities rather than problems, your mind expands, your standards rise, your awareness sharpens. And it is not about finding perfect people. It is about actively engaging in conversations that stimulate your mind, that ignite your curiosity, that uplift your spirit instead of draining your vital energy. Even one profound conversation with someone who thinks differently, who holds a unique perspective, can open mental doors within you that you did not even know existed. A crucial part of feeding your mind with high-value knowledge involves meticulously filtering your digital consumption. In today's hyper-connected world, the internet is a double-edged sword. It can either profoundly elevate you or it can systematically destroy your focus, scatter your attention, and erode your mental peace. If you do not consciously control your digital intake, it will, without question, control you. You must become ruthlessly intentional about what you watch, what you follow, what you rate online. Before you click, before you scroll, before you engage, ask yourself a series of critical questions. Is this genuinely helping me grow, or is it merely keeping me distracted? Is this feeding my highest potential, or is it wasting my most precious resource, my attention? Is this actively building my mind, or is it subtly weakening it? Those few questions, rigorously applied, will alone help you eliminate at least half of the mental clutter and low-value input you currently contend with daily. Remember, high-value knowledge is not always instantly entertaining. True growth rarely is. Sometimes you will need to sit with a complex concept, to wrestle with an idea until it finally clicks into place. Sometimes you will need to reread a challenging passage or revisit profound thought several times to fully grasp its implications. Sometimes you will need to consciously slow down, to step away from the incessant rush, and think deeply, reflectively. That is precisely how real, transformative learning happens. Not in haste, not amidst noise, but in deliberate, thoughtful, unhurried reflection. Another important point: feeding your mind is not solely about acquiring information. It is also fundamentally about absorbing inspiration. Inspiration awakens parts of your mind that logic alone cannot reach. It reconnects you with your deepest purpose, your intrinsic motivations. It sparks creativity, ignites passion, and reminds you with profound clarity why you are undertaking this challenging journey of growth in the first place. Whether it is a powerful speech that resonates with your soul, a meticulously crafted audiobook that offers timeless wisdom, a meaningful quote that crystallizes a profound truth, or a captivating story of human resilience against impossible odds, high-value inspiration strengthens your mindset, keeps you fueled and unwavering on your path. But let us be unequivocally clear. None of this matters if you do not first create ample space in your mind for new knowledge to enter and take root. You cannot effectively fill a cup that is already overflowing with mental junk. So you must prioritize removing the mental clutter first. Limit the incessant noise. Drastically reduce the endless stream of distractions. Cut out the useless, draining input. When you intentionally create that sacred mental space, high-value knowledge can not only enter, but can also settle, integrate, and profoundly transform your inner landscape. And here is the beautiful, self-reinforcing part of this process. The more consistently you feed your mind with high-quality input, the less your mind tolerates low-quality input. Your mental palette fundamentally changes. Shallow, superficial information ceases to satisfy you. Gossip and trivialities begin to feel like a profound waste of your precious time and energy. Drama, once perhaps an unconscious entertainment, starts feeling exhausting instead of engaging. You will find yourself naturally hungering for depth, for substance, for clarity, for genuine wisdom. And when that profound shift happens, when you start instinctively gravitating toward what truly nourishes you and naturally repelling what does not, that is the unmistakable sign of a truly rising mind. A mind in the process of becoming superhuman. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like a year from now, if your mind was fed consistently, daily, with ideas that made you stronger, wiser, calmer, more strategic, and more profoundly aware. Imagine how much more confidently you would make decisions, how much more clearly you would think, how much more powerful and aligned your identity would become. Feeding your mind with high-value knowledge is not merely a hobby. It is a lifestyle. It is the non-negotiable foundation of personal evolution, the bedrock of intellectual liberty. And if you commit to it, even for a few minutes each day, your mind will transform, quietly, steadily, profoundly. And that profound inner transformation will, without question, shape every single part of your external life. Chapter 9. Think in decades, not days. One of the greatest, most profound unlocks for building a superhuman mind is the conscious ability to stretch your thinking beyond the immediate moment you are in. It is the skill of expanding your mental horizon, of seeing beyond the next task, the next week, the next quarter. Most people, trapped by the pressures of immediacy, think in days. Some manage to think in weeks. A few, with slightly more foresight, think in months. But a very select few, the rarest, the strongest, the most powerful and impactful minds, think in decades. They are not easily swayed by immediate results or fleeting failures. They do not panic when something takes longer than expected, when the seed they planted does not sprout overnight. They possess an inherent understanding that meaningful, profound, and lasting growth, whether in a career, a relationship, a skill, or the self, takes time, real time. And they meticulously build their lives with patience, unwavering purpose, and a long-view strategy that is almost incomprehensible to the short-term thinker. When you deliberately choose to think in decades, something fundamental shifts inside you. Your pervasive stress dramatically decreases, replaced by a sense of calm, calculated resolve. Your urgency, rather than being frantic and reactive, becomes healthy, purposeful, and strategic. Your decisions become inherently smarter, calmer, and imbued with a deeper wisdom. You cease the futile chase of every passing trend, every quick win, and instead you begin choosing with profound intention, aligning each action with your distant yet vividly imagined future. You stop comparing your unique timeline to someone else's highlight reel, because you understand with clarity that you are meticulously building something lasting, something foundational, not something quick and ephemeral. Thinking long-term grants you a profound sense of inner liberty, the freedom to grow at a natural, organic pace, the freedom to improve without the crushing weight of external pressure, the freedom to stay consistent and committed long after the initial burst of motivation inevitably fades. Let us talk about why short-term thinking is so inherently dangerous, so subtly destructive. When your mental focus is narrowly fixed only on immediate results, you become reactive, easily swayed by external feedback or the lack thereof. You get discouraged quickly. You quit too soon, prematurely abandoning efforts that were just beginning to yield fruit. You bounce erratically from idea to idea, from strategy to strategy, because nothing ever feels fast enough. Nothing delivers instant gratification. You begin to internalize the belief that something is fundamentally wrong with you simply because the results are not instantaneous, are not delivered on demand. But nothing truly great is instant. Skills are not instant. Mastery is not instant. Unshakable confidence is not instant. A strong, resilient identity is not instant. These profound achievements require consistent repetition, immense endurance, and unwavering patience. And when you consciously embrace long-term thinking, you finally grant yourself permission to grow in the natural, organic way humans are designed to grow, step by step, layer by layer, root by root. Consider the majestic growth of a towering tree for a moment. It does not achieve its height and strength in a single season. It takes years, quiet years, slow years, of deep root building, of unseen growth beneath the surface, before its grandeur becomes visibly apparent above ground. If you were to judge that tree in its first months, in its infancy, you might mistakenly conclude that nothing significant was happening. But everything, absolutely everything, was happening, just not in a realm visible to the impatient eye. You too have roots. You are building inner strength, cultivating internal clarity, forging inner power long before the external world can perceive the tangible results of your efforts. And thinking in decades profoundly reminds you that this invisible, foundational work is just as, if not more, important than any visible, celebrated success. Now, here is where this long-term mindset becomes even more profoundly powerful. When you commit to thinking long-term, your internal standards rise exponentially. You no longer settle for superficial shortcuts or fleeting hacks because you intrinsically understand that shortcuts do not build legacies that last 10 years. You do not waste your precious time and energy on distractions because you recognize that these fleeting diversions hold no significance in the grand tapestry of a decade. You stop chasing temporary applause or external validation because you know that temporary adulation does not construct an enduring legacy. Instead, you begin to consciously and strategically invest your time, energy, and focus in habits, in authentic relationships, in valuable skills, and in decisions that your future self, that wiser, stronger version of you 10 years hence, will profoundly thank you for. One of the biggest, most overlooked benefits of thinking in decades is the profound emotional stability it bestows. When something inevitably goes wrong, as it always will, you do not panic. You do not collapse into despair or self-pity. You simply, calmly internalize the truth. This is merely part of the larger, unfolding process. You learn to perceive setbacks not as catastrophic endings, but as small, manageable events within a much grander, more expansive story. You see mistakes as invaluable lessons, not damning failures. You view slow seasons, periods of apparent stagnation, as crucial times of preparation and consolidation, not as arbitrary punishment. Long-term thinking effectively transforms emotional turbulence into calm, strategic clarity. This mindset also powerfully transforms your approach to discipline. When you know deep in your being that you are meticulously building something for the next 10 years, for the next generation, for your ultimate legacy, every single small action becomes imbued with profound meaning. A single workout, a single chapter read, a single focused hour of deliberate work no longer feels insignificant, trivial, or easy. Instead, it becomes a crucial, indispensable brick in a much larger, more magnificent structure. You learn to deeply appreciate consistency over sporadic intensity. You stop rushing, stop forcing, and instead you begin building with unwavering stability and enduring purpose. Thinking in decades also serves as an invaluable shield, protecting you from the corrosive pressure of social comparison. When your focus is steadfastly fixed on your own unique long-term journey, you naturally stop looking sideways. You cease comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You intuitively understand that everyone grows and evolves at a different, unique speed, and that speed, in isolation, is not the ultimate goal. Direction is, trajectory is, consistent, deliberate progress is. So release the urge to measure yourself against others. Give yourself the profound gift of self-compassion and focus on your own unfolding. So, how do you practically install this powerful long-term mindset into your daily life? You begin by asking yourself genuinely long-term questions. Instead of asking, "What can I achieve this week?" ask, "What kind of person do I aspire to be in 10 years? What core values will guide me?" Instead of asking, "What habits do I want to force myself to adopt?" ask, "What foundational habits do I want my future self to depend on, to embody effortlessly?" Instead of asking, "What goal should I pursue?" ask, "What enduring identity am I actively building? What skills will still matter profoundly a decade from now, regardless of fleeting trends?" These deeply probing questions powerfully shift your focus away from temporary discomfort, fleeting gratification, and superficial metrics and redirect it toward meaningful, sustainable, and profound growth. Then, with unwavering commitment, you align your daily actions with those profound long-term answers. Small, consistent steps, repeated relentlessly, aimed with precision in the right direction. That is long-term thinking in tangible action. And the inherent beauty of this approach is truly remarkable. When you genuinely think long-term, your daily life paradoxically becomes simpler. You gain crystal clarity on what truly matters and what, in the grand scheme, simply does not. Daily decisions become easier because they are no longer based on momentary emotions, impulses, or external pressures, but on a much larger, more expansive, and more compelling vision. You may not see the full transformative impact of this chapter today, but 10 years from now, yes, a full decade, you will undoubtedly look back and realize that consciously choosing to think long-term, to play the long game, was one of the greatest, most profound gifts you ever gave yourself. Because while most people sprint frantically, burn out quickly, and achieve little lasting impact, you will walk steadily, persistently, and inevitably arrive at your desired destination. While most people chase ephemeral quick wins, you will be meticulously building lasting strength, enduring competence, and profound inner peace. While most people give up too soon, swayed by impatience, you will persist long enough to win, to achieve, to truly flourish. A superhuman mind is not just powerful, it is profoundly patient. It thinks beyond the immediate moment. It holds the bigger picture, the expansive vision. It consciously chooses growth, depth, and mastery over fleeting speed or superficial gains. And once you truly master this profound principle, your entire life transforms, not suddenly, not dramatically, but profoundly, enduringly, and beautifully. Chapter 10. Master the art of self-control and delayed gratification. If you harbor the genuine desire to build a mind that is truly powerful, resilient, and sovereign, you must, without equivocation, learn the art of waiting for what is profoundly worth it. You must master the ancient, yet perennially relevant, art of self-control. Because at the very core of every strong, impactful mind lies this singular, crucial ability, the capacity to consistently choose long-term growth over fleeting short-term comfort, to prioritize enduring long-term reward over transient short-term pleasure, and to opt for sustainable long-term success over immediate, distracting gratification. Most people, unfortunately, fail to achieve their highest potential, not because they are inherently incapable or lack intelligence or are devoid of ambition. They fail because they struggle, often intensely, with the fundamental principle of delayed gratification. They crave the reward now. They desire the comfortable feeling now. They yearn for the instant comfort now. And that insistent now mentality, that relentless pull of immediacy, keeps them perpetually stuck, chained to a cycle of fleeting pleasures and unfulfilled potential. Self-control is not about denying yourself joy. It is, paradoxically, about giving yourself better joy. Joy that lasts, joy that builds you, joy that propels you forward with purpose instead of holding you captive in stagnant patterns. Imagine for a moment two distinct versions of yourself standing side by side. The first version is reactive, impulsively responding to every fleeting urge, every external stimulus. The second version is deliberate, thoughtful, choosing with conscious intention. Which one, honestly, do you trust more to navigate the complexities of life? Which one do you believe will build the life you truly desire? Which one possesses the inner fortitude to handle pressure, to seize genuine opportunity, to shoulder significant responsibility? It is always, unequivocally, the deliberate version. The one who pauses, the one who thinks critically, the one who chooses with clear intention rather than succumbing to blind impulse. Delayed gratification is a profound form of mental strength, a distinguishing characteristic that separates the extraordinary from the average, masters from the merely reactive. Think about it with clarity. Every meaningful goal you have ever pursued or will pursue intrinsically requires waiting. Building a successful career takes years of sustained effort and patience. Forging a strong, healthy body demands consistent, long-term discipline. Cultivating a thriving business requires persistent, often unseen, effort over extended periods. Building unshakable confidence is a gradual process of earned competence. Achieving true mastery in any field is the culmination of countless hours, days, and years of dedicated practice. Yet the world around us constantly bombards us with temptations for shortcuts, distractions, and instant comforts. The immediate gratification of digital feeds, processed foods, and effortless entertainment. And every single time you choose the shortcut, you subtly weaken your mind's capacity for sustained effort. Conversely, every single time you consciously choose the right long-term action, even when it feels boring, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it seems insignificant, you systematically strengthen your mind, reinforcing its resilience and purpose. Let us break this down in a way that is simple, actionable, and profoundly real. Self-control begins with acute awareness. You must actively start noticing your impulses. The unconscious impulse to check your phone yet again. The subtle urge to procrastinate on a crucial task. The desire to escape uncomfortable emotions through distraction. The automatic inclination to choose immediate comfort over necessary challenge. The insidious impulse to avoid the hard, necessary thing. Most people tragically act on these impulses without ever truly thinking, without conscious intervention. But the moment you pause, even for a mere 3 seconds, you create a secret space. And in that space, you reclaim your power, your mental liberty. Those few seconds are the profound difference between reactive living and intentional, purposeful living. Next comes the crucial skill of choosing wisely. When you feel the strong urge to act on an impulse, to succumb to instant gratification, Consciously ask yourself three simple yet deeply penetrating questions. Will this truly matter in an hour? Will this still matter tomorrow? Will this even register a year from now? Those simple questions act like a circuit breaker for impulsive, short-sighted behavior. They yank you out of the emotional spell of the immediate moment and place you back into alignment with your long-term identity, your highest aspirations. Because impulses, by their very nature, are loud, demanding, but ultimately short-lived. Purpose, by contrast, is often quiet, subtle, but profoundly permanent. And when you learn to listen to the quiet whisper of purpose instead of the clamor of impulse, you enter a different, more elevated level of mental strength and self-mastery. And let us address something incredibly important that often gets misunderstood. Self-control is not built by avoiding temptation forever, by retreating into an ascetic existence. That is an unsustainable fantasy. It is built, paradoxically, by facing temptation head-on and consciously choosing the stronger, more aligned path. Every single time you utter a firm, "not now" instead of an indulgent, "why not?" your discipline subtly rises. Every time you commit to later instead of succumbing to right now, your inner confidence grows. Every time you prove to yourself through small, deliberate acts that you can wait, that you can delay, your future becomes stronger, more robust, more aligned with your highest vision. One of the reasons delayed gratification is so profoundly powerful is that it grants you true emotional independence. You no longer depend on your fluctuating mood to take necessary action. You no longer rely on external comfort or superficial validation to feel okay. You no longer depend on quick, fleeting rewards to sustain your motivation. Instead, you become the internal source of your own stability, your own drive, your own enduring fulfillment. And that profound internal stability becomes your undeniable advantage. Because when others quit, swayed by immediate discomfort, you continue unwavering. When others fall apart under pressure, lacking inner resilience, you remain steady, composed. And when others choose transient pleasure over meaningful progress, you, with clear intention, choose purpose. Self-control also builds something else, something I believe is wildly underrated in our modern world: self-respect. Think about how you feel about yourself after a day where you gave in to every impulse versus a day where you showed up with discipline and intention. The difference is enormous. On the impulsive day, you feel foggy, guilty, behind. On the disciplined day, you feel clear, proud, ahead. That feeling of self-respect compounds over time, just like everything else we have been talking about. And eventually you start making better choices, not because you are forcing yourself, but because you respect yourself too much to settle for less. Let me make this even more practical. Start with small, manageable acts of delayed gratification. Instead of mindlessly scrolling, consciously skip that unnecessary digital diversion. Finish your crucial task before you allow yourself to relax or seek entertainment. Deliberately choose to do the harder, more impactful thing first. Hold your attention on a single task for just a little longer than feels comfortable. Resist the urge to quit or disengage when things become slightly uncomfortable or challenging. These small, seemingly insignificant acts, repeated consistently, compound into immense power. These small acts systematically create a new, more powerful identity. These small acts build profound mental muscle, reinforcing the neural pathways of self-mastery. And here is the ultimate truth you must internalize. Your extraordinary future is profoundly shaped by the myriad of small moments when you consciously choose what is right and beneficial instead of what is merely easy or immediately gratifying. It is shaped by the countless instances when you hold yourself steady, poised, and intentional while your fleeting emotions pull you in another, less productive direction. It is shaped by the courageous moments when you deliberately delay comfort in exchange for the immeasurable returns of profound growth. A superhuman mind does not avoid desire. It guides it with wisdom. A superhuman mind does not suppress emotion. It stabilizes it with awareness. A superhuman mind does not chase instant gratification. It meticulously creates long-term fulfillment. And the more consistently you practice self-control, the more natural, effortless, and deeply ingrained it becomes. Eventually, you will not have to force it. You will simply be the person who consistently makes strong, aligned decisions. You will simply be the person who possesses the internal fortitude to wait for what truly matters. You will simply be the person who does not break under the subtle, pervasive pull of temptation. And that identity, that internal strength, is precisely what elevates you far, far above the ordinary. This is the art of self-control. This is the power of delayed gratification, and it will profoundly shape not just your mind, but the entire trajectory of your extraordinary life. Chapter 11. Build unshakable confidence through competence. Confidence is one of the most profoundly misunderstood and often misapplied qualities in the world. People frequently associate confidence with external bravado, with talking big, with an outward display of flawless swagger. They might confuse it with superficial hype, with a performative attitude. But real confidence, the kind that truly lasts, the kind that anchors you through intense pressure, unforeseen challenges, and pervasive uncertainty, has absolutely nothing to do with pretending, with external validation, or with artificial displays. Real, unshakable confidence emanates from competence. It springs from skill. It is built upon concrete proof. From a deep, embodied knowing that you can reliably count on yourself because you have, through deliberate effort and consistent application, earned the undeniable right to trust who you are and what you are capable of. If you genuinely desire unshakable confidence, the kind that stands firm regardless of external circumstances, you have to build it from the inside out, not the outside in. You cannot rely on fleeting compliments, on the approval of others, or on the transient admiration of the crowd. Because the very same people who praise you effusively today may, without warning, doubt or criticize you tomorrow. The same world that lifts you up on a pedestal can, with equal swiftness, tear you down. But competence, true, hard-won competence, that is yours forever. No one can ever take away what you have diligently practiced, what you have painstakingly mastered, what you have definitively proven to yourself again and again through action and experience. Think back to the moments in your life when you felt genuinely confident. Really think about them. Were they moments when someone complimented you? Probably not. They were probably moments when you accomplished something difficult, when you solved a problem you were not sure you could solve, when you stood up for yourself in a situation that scared you, when you pushed through something that tested every ounce of your strength. Those moments created confidence because they created proof that you are capable, proof that you can rely on yourself, and that proof is yours forever. Nobody can take it away. No criticism can erase it. No failure can delete it, because it is burned into your experience. So how do you build this kind of confidence deliberately? It happens in 3 stages. First, you learn. You absorb knowledge. You study. You observe. You build a foundation of understanding. But, and this is important, learning alone does not create confidence. You can read 100 books about swimming and still feel terrified standing at the edge of the pool. Learning is necessary, but it is not sufficient. The second stage is practice. This is where most people stop. And ironically, this is where confidence actually begins. Practice means getting your hands dirty. Practice means making mistakes and learning from them. Practice means trying, failing, adjusting, iterating. Practice means doing the thing imperfectly, repeatedly, until the imperfections start smoothing out. Every hour of practice deposits a coin in your confidence account. It might not feel like much at the time, but those coins add up. The third stage is application. This is where you take what you have learned in practice and use it in the real world. You step into the arena. You apply the skill when it actually matters. And every time you do, you close the loop between effort and self-belief. You prove to yourself, not in theory, but in practice, that you can handle it. And that proof rewires your identity. You go from someone who hopes they can handle challenges to someone who knows they can. That shift is everything. Let me tell you something else that is crucial. Confidence grows faster when you focus on one thing at a time. Trying to become good at everything simultaneously is a recipe for mediocrity and self-doubt. But when you choose one area, one skill, one domain, and you pour your focused energy into it, you improve quickly. Quick improvement builds quick competence. Quick competence builds quick confidence. Depth beats breadth when it comes to building genuine self-belief. And here's a piece of the confidence puzzle that people rarely talk about: keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you will do something and you actually do it, you build self-trust. And self-trust is the bedrock of confidence. But every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, you chip away at that foundation. You teach your brain that your word does not mean anything. And if your own word does not mean anything to you, how can you possibly feel confident? So start small. Make a tiny promise. Keep it. Make another. Keep that one too. Stack those kept promises day after day and watch what happens to your confidence. It does not just grow. It becomes a part of you. One more thing I want to address. Stop comparing yourself to other people as a measure of confidence. Comparison is the fastest way to destroy the confidence you have worked so hard to build. Because there will always be someone further along. Always. And if your confidence depends on being ahead of everyone else, you will never feel secure. Real confidence is not measured against others. It is measured against your former self. Are you better than you were last month? Are you braver than you were last year? Are you more skilled than you were when you started? If the answer is yes, you are winning. Full stop. Confidence is not about being the best. It is about being better. And better is always available to you. No matter where you are right now, you are building something real here. Not a performance, not an act, not a mask you put on when you walk out the door. You are building the quiet, deep, unmovable confidence that comes from knowing you can count on yourself. And that, more than anything else, is what will carry you through whatever comes next. Because life will throw things at you. It always does. But when you have built real confidence through real competence, you do not flinch. You do not freeze. You breathe. You step forward. And you handle it because you have trained for this. Because you have prepared for this. Because you have become someone you can count on. And there is nothing in this world more powerful than that. Chapter 12. Learn to use silence, observation, and strategy. There comes a profound point in your personal growth journey where the cacophony of external noise ceases to be helpful, where constant talking, impulsive reactions, and ceaseless activities stop serving your highest purpose. Suddenly, with a jolt of clarity, you realize something truly powerful. The strongest, most influential people in any room are rarely the loudest. The most intelligent, strategic minds are almost never the ones speaking the most, dominating the conversation. The individuals who consistently hold the greatest advantage, the people who seem to always make the right move at the right time, are often the ones who have meticulously mastered three quiet, often underestimated skills: silence, acute observation, and deliberate strategy. These three intertwined skills do not demand attention. They do not make noise. They do not overtly seek external validation or applause. Yet they possess the power to elevate your thinking, your decisions, and your impact in ways most people will never experience. Why? Because silence, when consciously embraced, gives you unparalleled clarity. Acute observation, when honed, provides you with profound insight. And deliberate strategy, when applied, gives you unwavering direction. Together, these three quiet powers transform your mind into a fortress of intentionality, a place where decisions are forged with purpose and foresight, not born of fleeting impulse or emotional reactivity. Let us begin with silence. For many, silence is profoundly uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own thoughts, to sit with their fears, their insecurities, their unfulfilled desires, their unvarnished truth. In our hyperstimulated world, silence is often perceived as a void, something to be filled immediately. But the moment you learn to consciously get comfortable with silence, to embrace its profound stillness, it transforms into one of your greatest, most potent sources of strength. Silence grants you essential space to think, to truly think without external interruption. Silence provides the necessary space to process complex emotions, difficult information, and conflicting ideas. Silence allows you to elegantly separate your authentic feelings from your reactive, conditioned emotional responses. If your mind is perpetually filled with noise, the ceaseless chatter of other people's opinions, the constant pull of distractions, the endless digital stimulation, you will never, truly never, hear your own inner voice, your own wisdom, with crystal clarity. When you intentionally practice silence, even for just a few minutes each day, you sharpen your inner world. You become more grounded, more centered, more deliberate in your choices. You develop a level of mental clarity and internal peace that most people never taste precisely because they never stop long enough to reach it. Silence is not empty. Silence is, paradoxically, full of answers, full of profound insights. Now let us turn our attention to observation. Observation is the exquisite art of seeing what others, in their rush and preoccupation, consistently miss. It is the art of truly listening when others are impatiently waiting to speak. It is the art of discerning subtle patterns, of understanding unspoken behaviors, of sensing underlying intentions, and of intuitively reading the nuanced dynamics of environments and relationships. Observation is not passive. Observation is an active, engaged, and deeply intentional form of awareness. And awareness, in our often unaware world, is an undeniable superpower. When you observe closely with all your senses and your full attention, you pick up invaluable details that others blindly ignore. You begin to understand people more profoundly, not because they explicitly tell you who they are, but because you meticulously notice how they behave, how they react, how they carry themselves. You comprehend situations with greater depth, not because someone explains them to you, but because you perceive the intricate underlying dynamics at play. You understand yourself more intimately, not through endless analytical introspection, but by quietly watching your own thoughts, your reactions, your habitual responses. People reveal everything, absolutely everything, if you simply know how to pay attention. The subtle shifts in their tone, the slight gestures, the way they treat others, their responses to stress, their demeanor under pressure. Most people miss these critical signals because they are too busy talking, too preoccupied with their own internal monologue, or too focused on what they intend to say next. But you, dedicated to building a stronger mind, learn to observe deeply, patiently, before you ever act or speak. Observation also serves as a powerful shield, protecting you from unnecessary mistakes. It helps you identify red flags early, before they escalate. It helps you understand the crucial element of timing, when to move, when to wait, when to speak, and when to remain silent. Much of life's success hinges on impeccable timing, and much of that timing stems directly from heightened awareness. Now, let us bring in the third piece, strategy. Strategy is the vital element. It separates random, inefficient action from meaningful, impactful progress. Strategy is what transforms raw effort into deliberate, measurable advancement. Strategy is what makes your decisions intelligent, considered, and effective rather than impulsive or emotionally driven. A truly strategic thinker does not ask, "What do I feel like doing right now?" They ask, "What is the smartest, most effective thing to do given all the information I have?" They do not move based on fleeting impulses. They move based on clear, well-defined intention. They do not act merely for the sake of being active. They act to be profoundly effective. Strategy demands reflection. Strategy requires thinking several moves ahead, anticipating potential outcomes. Strategy necessitates understanding consequences long before they arrive. And strategy becomes exquisitely powerful when seamlessly paired with silence and observation. Silence provides you with the clarity to think without distortion. Observation furnishes you with the critical information you need. And strategy then gives you the precise, purposeful direction to act. Imagine yourself walking into any situation, a high-stakes negotiation, a complex social gathering, a challenging project meeting, armed with these three potent tools. You speak less so you reveal less, guarding your mental resources. You observe more so you learn more, gathering invaluable intelligence. You strategize quietly, internally, so your external actions become calculated, precise, and impactful rather than chaotic or reactive. You become, in essence, unpredictable to those who operate on impulse, not because you are mysterious, but because you are profoundly intentional and self-directed. People cannot predict someone who does not follow the predictable patterns of their own impulses. Let me tell you something many people never fully understand. Silence is not weakness. Observation is not passivity. Strategy is not manipulation. These are, in their purest form, expressions of high intelligence. These are manifestations of profound self-control. These are fundamental forms of mental strength and personal liberty. You do not always need to prove yourself through grand gestures. You do not always need to respond to every comment or challenge. You do not always need to react to every stimulus. Sometimes the strongest, most powerful move you can make is the one you do not make at all. Sometimes the smartest, most impactful thing you can say is simply nothing. Sometimes the greatest power resides in patiently waiting, keenly watching, and profoundly understanding before you commit to any action. When you master these three quiet yet immensely powerful skills, your confidence grows naturally, organically. You become less reactive, less prone to stress, less easily overwhelmed by external events. You consistently think before you move, which means you rarely suffer the sting of regret for impulsive decisions. You hold your power within, consciously choosing where to deploy it. Instead of thoughtlessly giving it away through automatic reactions, you transform into someone who moves calmly, speaks intentionally, and chooses wisely. These skills do not necessarily make you louder. They make you infinitely more effective. They do not always make you immediately noticeable. They make you deeply impactful. And over time, you will observe something remarkable. People begin to instinctively respect your presence, not because you dominate or assert, but because you emanate an aura of deep clarity. They trust your decisions. They sense your inner stability. They feel your profound awareness, and they understand intuitively that you do not move without purpose, without intention. This is what silence, observation, and strategy truly do for you. They turn your mind into a quiet, unstoppable force. A force that moves with unwavering intention, sees with piercing clarity, and acts with strategic precision, embodying the very essence of a superhuman mind. Chapter 13. Make your mind anti-fragile. Life, in its unpredictable and often relentless nature, will not always unfold precisely the way you expect. This is an undeniable, universal truth. You will, without question, face intense pressure, experience crushing setbacks, encounter profound disappointments, and confront unexpected challenges that seem to appear from nowhere. That much is guaranteed. But the real question, the deeply consequential question that will fundamentally shape your entire future, is this. When these inevitable forces arrive, do you break under the pressure, or do you paradoxically get stronger because of it? Most people sadly crumble. They lose their hard-won confidence. They lose their sense of direction. They allow the sheer weight of life's difficulties to systematically weaken their resolve, their spirit, and their mind. But a superhuman mind, a mind committed to true mastery, does something profoundly different. It becomes anti-fragile. It does not merely survive difficulty. It becomes stronger through it. It does not just endure resistance. It becomes sharper because of it. It does not simply withstand adversity. It becomes wiser through every painful encounter. Anti-fragility is a term popularized by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and it describes something far beyond mere resilience or robustness. Resilience allows you to return to your original state after a shock. Anti-fragility means you actively grow and improve from the things that should, by all conventional logic, break you. You become better, not bitter. You become wiser, not simply wounded. You become more capable, more adaptable, and less fearful. Pressure does not damage you. It actively develops you, honing your edges, strengthening your core. Let us start with a simple yet often overlooked truth. You do not genuinely grow during the easy times. You certainly enjoy the easy times, savoring comfort and stability. But profound strength, deep wisdom, and true resilience are forged during the difficult ones. Strength is built when things are heavy, when the burdens seem immense. Confidence is forged when circumstances are uncertain, when the path ahead is unclear. Wisdom is acquired when situations are confusing, when answers are elusive. Resilience is hardened when experiences are painful, when your spirit is tested to its limits. The moments that challenge you the most, that push you to your breaking point, are precisely the moments with the most immense potential to shape you into an elevated version of yourself. But this transformative growth occurs only if you consciously choose to respond with strength, with learning, with adaptation, instead of succumbing to surrender. To build an anti-fragile mind, you must first and foremost reframe how you fundamentally perceive difficulty. Instead of reflexively asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a question steeped in victimhood, begin to ask, "What is this preparing me for? What lesson is embedded within this challenge?" That single shift in perspective changes everything. Suddenly, a debilitating setback transforms into a rigorous training exercise. A daunting challenge becomes an invaluable education. Intense pressure becomes a sharpening stone, refining your capabilities. When you consistently choose to see life this way, you stop feeling cursed by misfortune and start feeling prepared for mastery. You stop feeling perpetually unlucky and start feeling inherently capable. You stop feeling overwhelmingly stressed and start feeling robustly equipped. Another key to cultivating an anti-fragile mind is the deliberate embrace of small, controlled discomfort. When you habitually avoid all forms of discomfort, physical, mental, emotional, small problems feel disproportionately huge, minor challenges feel overwhelmingly catastrophic, and life itself feels inherently dangerous and threatening. But when you intentionally expose yourself to manageable difficulty, when you consciously step outside your comfort zone, whether it is waking up earlier, committing to a consistent discipline, undertaking a task that genuinely scares you, or engaging in challenging intellectual work, systematically build mental muscle. You train your mind to handle tension, uncertainty, and friction without collapsing. And just like physical training, where muscles adapt and grow stronger with increasing resistance, the more mental resistance you skillfully face and overcome, the more robust and anti-fragile your mind becomes. Think of pressure as a weight in a gym. You do not attempt to lift the heaviest weight first. You start small, with manageable loads. You build slowly, gradually increasing the resistance. Each repetition, each successful lift, strengthens you. Over time, the weight that once felt impossible, insurmountable, eventually becomes your warm-up. Life operates on the same principle. Every challenge you face, every difficulty you navigate, every struggle you endure is actively shaping your capacity, expanding your internal bandwidth, adding new layers of strength to your being. An anti-fragile mind also profoundly understands how to remain calm under tension. Not because you ignore or suppress your emotions, but because you understand them, you process them, and you deliberately choose your response. When something stressful or chaotic happens, most people react instantly. They panic, they overthink, they catastrophize, they assume the worst. But an anti-fragile mind pauses. It breathes deeply. It observes the situation with detachment. It gives itself a crucial moment to regain clarity, to reconnect with its internal anchor. That moment, those few seconds of cultivated composure in the midst of turmoil, can fundamentally change the entire outcome of a situation. You do not need to eliminate stress from your life. That is an impossible and perhaps even undesirable goal. You need to learn how to stay steady, grounded, and clear-headed inside of it. Another indispensable part of anti-fragility is profound adaptability. Life, in its essence, is a dynamic, ever-changing landscape. It will not always follow your meticulously laid plans. People will not always behave predictably or conform to your expectations. Opportunities will not always appear in the precise form you imagined. But an anti-fragile mind does not break when plans change. It adjusts. It adapts with agile flexibility. It remains fluid, not rigid. Rigidity, like a brittle branch, breaks under pressure. Flexibility, like a supple reed, bends and bounces back, often stronger. If you cultivate the ability to adapt quickly, to shift your perspective, to re-strategize your approach, to change direction with graceful agility, you will always stay ahead. You will move through life with a sense of inner fluidity and mental agility that most people never develop, a true expression of mental liberty. Let us talk about setbacks specifically. When something goes wrong, when a project fails, when a relationship sours, most people perceive it as an ending, a definitive failure, but an anti-fragile mind sees it as invaluable data. It is information. It is precise feedback. You learn exactly what does not work. You discover precisely where you need to grow, where your blind spots lie. You discern what needs to fundamentally change in your approach. Failure in this paradigm stops being a dead end and transforms into a detour, necessary redirection that ultimately guides you to a stronger, more refined, more capable version of yourself. Every single time you rise after falling, every time you learn from a misstep, you reinforce your anti-fragility. You are teaching your mind, through lived experience, a profound truth. We bend. We do not break. And here is something critically important. Anti-fragile individuals do not shy away from reality. They face it directly, courageously. They acknowledge the truth even when it is uncomfortable, painful, or inconvenient. They look at the situation clearly, objectively, without delusion. They accept what they cannot control, gracefully, releasing the need to manipulate external forces. And then, with laser-like focus, they direct their energy, their will, their ingenuity toward what they can control. That profound clarity, that grounded acceptance, provides them with immense strength. That clarity gives them precise direction. That clarity keeps their mind steady, unwavering, and effective in moments when most people, lacking this internal framework, would collapse into chaos or despair. Finally, understand this profound truth. Becoming anti-fragile is not a passive process. It is a conscious choice. It is a daily choice. It is the unwavering choice to grow instead of shrink, to learn instead of complain, to rise instead of remain stuck in victimhood. Every single challenge that inevitably enters your life, every difficulty, every pressure point, offers you to fundamental paths. You can break, or you can build. You and only you get to choose which path you courageously take. A superhuman mind is not created in the soft embrace of comfort. It is forged in the crucible of adversity. It is meticulously shaped under the intense hammer of pressure. It is elegantly refined in the fire of difficulty. And the more you consciously, bravely embrace that profound truth, the more unstoppable, the more liberated, the more extraordinary you become. Your mind, through this alchemical process, transcends mere survival. It learns to thrive in the heart of uncertainty, transforming every challenge into a catalyst for its own magnificent evolution. Chapter 14. Reprogram your self-talk with power and precision. The words you speak to yourself, the internal dialogue that forms the constant soundtrack of your existence, shapes your life more profoundly, more pervasively than any words ever spoken by anyone else. You literally live with your own mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single second of every single day. And if that mind, your most intimate companion, is relentlessly filled with negative, doubtful, critical, or destructive self-talk, then it matters little how talented you are, how intelligent, how many opportunities you possess. You will inevitably and unconsciously hold yourself back, sabotaging your own potential. But if you learn to consciously reprogram your inner voice, if you learn to speak to yourself with unwavering power and strategic precision, everything, and I mean everything, changes. Your confidence rises exponentially. Your clarity sharpens. Taking decisive action becomes easier, more fluid, and your very identity begins a profound upward shift, transforming you into someone stronger, more capable, more aligned with your highest self. Most people mistakenly believe self-talk is just background noise, an unbidden stream of consciousness that passively happens to them. They perceive it as an uncontrollable mental current. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Self-talk is, in essence, programming. It is actively shaping your deepest beliefs about yourself and the world. It is meticulously sculpting your self-image, determining what you believe you are capable of. It is dictating your capacity and willingness to take action. Every phrase you unconsciously repeat to yourself becomes a fundamental script that your mind, your subconscious, faithfully follows. So if your internal script persistently says, "I am not good enough," you will, without realizing it, live perpetually below your potential. If your script declares, "I always fail," you will subconsciously hesitate and retreat from challenges. If your script asserts, "I am not that kind of person," you will instinctively resist pushing yourself into new, expansive identities. But here is the magnificent good news. You possess the inherent power to rewrite that script. You can fundamentally change the inner voice that guides you. You can reprogram your mind with conscious intention instead of passively allowing old, disempowering habits and narratives to run the show. This is an act of ultimate mental liberty. Let us begin with acute awareness. Pay meticulous attention to how you habitually talk to yourself, especially in moments of stress, uncertainty, fear, or perceived failure. Do you encourage yourself, offering support and constructive guidance? Or do you relentlessly tear yourself down with harsh criticism? Do you provide clear, empowering direction, or do you feed your doubts and anxieties? Most people are astonishingly harsh toward themselves in precisely the moments when they most desperately need support, compassion, and internal guidance. They speak to themselves in ways they would never, ever speak to a cherished friend or even a casual acquaintance. But understand this profound truth. Your mind listens. Your mind absorbs. Your mind relentlessly repeats what it consistently hears. And it will believe your voice, your inner voice, more than anyone else's, regardless of external validation or dissent. The next step is the deliberate removal of outdated scripts. These are the automatic, often unconscious thoughts you have repeated to yourself for years, perhaps decades. Thoughts like, I cannot do this, or that is just who I am, or the insidious, self-limiting, I am not ready. These phrases, through sheer repetition, feel familiar, ingrained, almost like objective truths. But familiar does not mean true. Familiar simply means repeated. And repetition, consistent unconscious repetition, is precisely what gives negative self-talk its pervasive, destructive power. So when you catch yourself using these old, limiting scripts, actively interrupt them. Pause. Breathe. Replace them. Replacement, conscious and deliberate, is one of the most effective forms of mental reprogramming. And this replacement is not about empty positivity or pretending everything is perfect or lying to yourself. It is about consciously choosing truthful, empowering, and directional language. Instead of I cannot do this, try I can learn this, and I will. Instead of I always mess up, try I am improving every day, learning from every experience. Instead of I am not ready, try I am growing into readiness right now. These are not fantasies. They are conscious choices. They are clear, empowering directions for your mind. They guide your evolving identity in the direction of strength, capability, and unwavering purpose. Another powerfully transformative part of reprogramming self-talk is speaking to yourself like a leader. True leaders communicate with clarity. Leaders speak with profound purpose. Leaders articulate their intentions with unwavering conviction. Leaders do not say, maybe I will try. They say, here is what we are doing. This is the path forward. When you consciously adopt that tone, that internal posture, with yourself, you dramatically shift from a state of internal uncertainty to one of internal authority. You stop habitually negotiating with yourself. You cease hesitating. You begin directing your own mind with the same firm yet supportive guidance a powerful, trusted mentor would apply to you. Tone matters. Language matters. Identity matters. Instead of passively telling yourself, I hope I can stay disciplined, tell yourself with conviction, I am a disciplined person. The moment you consciously change the identity embedded in your language, your subsequent actions, decisions, and behaviors naturally and effortlessly begin to align with that elevated self-perception. Your self-talk effectively becomes a blueprint that your mind faithfully follows. That identity-based self-talk is far, far more powerful and enduring than mere outcome-based self-talk. Another critical element of self-talk, and perhaps the ultimate test of its reprogramming, is how you speak to yourself during failure or setback. This is precisely where most people inadvertently become their own worst enemy. When they fail, when they fall short of expectations, they instinctively attack themselves. They exaggerate the mistake, turning a single moment of imperfection into a damning, pervasive story of unworthiness. But powerful minds, minds that are cultivated for superhuman strength, do something completely different. When they encounter failure, they coach themselves. They analyze the situation objectively. They adjust their approach, and then they move forward with renewed insight. They say, here is what I learned from this experience, or here is how I will intelligently improve next time. They do not shame themselves. They strategically strengthen themselves. And because of that profound shift, mistakes and failures are transformed from self-inflicted wounds into invaluable stepping stones on the path to mastery. Reprogramming your self-talk also unequivocally requires consistency. Uttering a strong, empowering phrase once or twice will likely change very little, but repeating it daily, consistently, especially during moments of internal resistance, during moments of fear, during moments of self-doubt, that relentless, intentional repetition literally reshapes your brain, your mind, in its remarkable neuroplasticity, actually rewires itself through consistent repetition. The more consistently you speak to yourself with clarity, with power, with compassion, the more your identity evolves. That is precisely why affirmations work powerfully for some people and seem ineffective for others. It is not merely the words themselves. It is the consistent repetition, the deep underlying belief, and the genuine emotion infused behind those words. And here is the final crucial piece of this puzzle. Your self-talk must consistently match your desired future, not be tethered to your limiting past. The internal voice, the narrative that got you to your current state, cannot, by definition, take you where you truly want to go. You must consciously begin to speak like the person you are actively becoming. You must speak like someone capable, disciplined, calm, focused, and powerful. When your self-talk aligns authentically with your highest self, your aspirational identity, your habits, your decisions, and your entire spectrum of behaviors naturally and effortlessly follow suit. Your inner voice is not just a passive commentary on your life. It is direct instruction. It is profound guidance. It is the unwavering instruction manual for your future. And when you master it, when you consciously, deliberately reprogram it with unwavering intention, you build a mind that supports you unequivocally instead of sabotaging you. You create an internal mental environment where strength, clarity, and purpose grow naturally, organically, and you become, in every sense, someone who thinks, speaks, and acts from a profound, unwavering place of power. Chapter 15. Tap into the identity of the person you want to become. There comes a pivotal moment in every profound transformation where you must cease merely preparing to become the person you want to be, and instead actually become them. Not to pretend, not to merely imagine, but to fully step into them, to own that new identity, to live, breathe, and embody them with every fiber of your being. Because identity, in its profoundest sense, is the final, decisive doorway. Everything you have diligently been learning, meticulously building, and consistently practicing throughout this entire journey, rebuilding of your foundation, the sharpening of your focus, the strengthening of your emotional power, the cultivation of discipline, these chapters lead to one singular, magnificent outcome: a new you, a stronger you, a bolder you, a more disciplined, more focused, more resilient, and ultimately more powerful version of yourself. But here's the critical understanding. You cannot fully reach that elevated version of yourself by staying stubbornly attached to who you used to be. You must, with conscious intention and courageous action, step into the identity of the person you want to become. Most people tragically never make this final, decisive leap. They may change their habits for a while, but they fail to fundamentally shift their identity. They might set ambitious new goals, but they never truly change the way they deeply see themselves. And because of that crucial disconnect, they inevitably stay stuck in old patterns, trapped in the gravitational pull of their past self. You simply cannot create a truly new, extraordinary life with an old, limiting identity. If you still, deep down, perceive yourself as inconsistent, you will by default continue to act inconsistently. If you still see yourself as merely average, you will continue to make average decisions, despite your best intentions. If you still hold the internal belief that you are someone who struggles perpetually, you will subconsciously recreate struggle in your reality. Your identity, in its essence, is the ultimate blueprint in your mind. Your subconscious faithfully follows. Change the blueprint, and you fundamentally change the entire structure, very architecture of your life. So how do you practically, powerfully, and permanently step into a new identity? You begin by defining it with absolute, crystal clear precision. Who precisely do you want to be? Not in vague, ethereal inspirational phrases, but in concrete, actionable detail. What specific habits does your best, highest self consistently live by? How do they carry themselves in a world? Their posture, their presence, their demeanor. How do they think? What are their core beliefs? Their mental frameworks? How do they make decisions? Are they impulsive or deliberate and strategic? How do they talk to themselves? Is their inner voice a coach or a critic? How do they approach challenges? With fear or with fortitude? When you can vividly, viscerally picture this person, when you can describe them with profound clarity, You provide your mind with an unmistakable target, a precise direction to grow toward, a powerful internal compass. Then comes the most important, most transformative part. You start acting like that person now. Not someday when you feel ready or circumstances align, but now. Even if you do not fully, authentically feel like them yet, especially if it feels strange, uncomfortable, or even like an act of audacious pretense at first. Identity, true identity, is not merely declared. It is built meticulously through consistent action. Confidence is not granted. It is forged through repeated experiences of competence. Belief is not simply wished for. It is earned through tangible, lived experience. When you consistently act like the person you aspire to become, your mind, your neurobiology, begins to catch up. Your brain begins to adjust its pathways, its internal programming. You begin to identify deeply and authentically with the person you are consistently acting like. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, those intentional actions transform into ingrained habits. Those habits coalesce into enduring traits. And those traits, over time, solidify into a powerful, unshakable identity. And one day you will wake up and realize, with a profound sense of recognition, that you have not just become the person you were stepping into. You are that person, fully and authentically. But understand this crucial point. Stepping into a new, elevated identity unequivocally requires leaving behind the old one, and that often can be profoundly uncomfortable, even unsettling. Your old, familiar habits will exert a powerful gravitational pull, attempting to draw you back into comfort. Your old, limiting thoughts will relentlessly challenge your new narrative. Your old insecurities will wage a fierce internal battle to keep you precisely where you have always been. Safe, predictable, small. This resistance does not arise because you are incapable. It arises because the human mind, in its primal programming, prefers familiarity, even unhelpful familiarity, over the vast, expansive yet often frightening territory of growth. You must be willing to outgrow your old self. You must be willing to metaphorically disappoint your old patterns and ingrained comfort zones. You must be willing to deliberately break the loyalty you have built, however unconsciously, to your past, limited identity. This is an act of profound self-liberation. Identity also critically requires consistency. You cannot merely step into a new version of yourself for a single day or a week and expect permanent, profound change. You must live this new identity daily, consistently, relentlessly. You must practice it until it ceases to be an effort and becomes your natural, automatic default. Think of identity like a finely tailored suit or a comfortable, beloved piece of clothing. You wear it, you inhabit it, you move in it, until it fits you perfectly, until it feels like a second skin, an inextricable part of your being. The more consistently you live like your future self, the more your present, limited self dissolves, making way for the new. Let us talk about something many people do not fully realize. Your environment plays a monumental role in the process of identity formation and reinforcement. If your current environment, your physical spaces, the media you consume, the narratives you are exposed to, constantly reminds you of who you used to be, of your old, limiting identity, it will be an arduous uphill battle to sustain the new one. You may need to consciously shift your surroundings. You may need to proactively spend more intentional time with people who powerfully reflect your future, your aspirations, rather than merely mirroring your past. You may need to meticulously clean up your living and working spaces, curating them to reflect your desired identity. You may need to upgrade your daily routines, and perhaps most importantly, distance yourself from influences, be they people, places, or digital content. See actively reinforce the identity you are courageously trying to leave behind. You simply cannot grow into your next, most powerful version if you are perpetually standing in the shadow of your previous one. Another powerful component of deliberate identity building is language, specifically the words you use to describe yourself. These words matter profoundly. If you constantly say, I am lazy, or I am not disciplined, or I am always stressed, or I am just not good at this, then your mind, in its obedient function, will unequivocally believe you. It will construct your reality to match those internal declarations. But when you consciously, deliberately, and consistently start speaking from your new identity, phrases like, I am disciplined. I am constantly improving. I handle challenges well. I am becoming stronger every day. You actively write the internal script that your mind follows. You are providing it with new, empowering operating instructions. Speak like the person you are becoming, not the person you are actively leaving behind. And here is something critically important that will liberate you if you internalize it. Your new identity does not require external validation. You do not need others to agree with it. You do not need their applause, their permission, or their understanding. Most people, in their conventional thinking, will not fully comprehend or acknowledge your transformation until much later, when the external results become undeniably evident. And that profoundly is okay. Identity is first and foremost an internal shift, a profound internal recalibration, long before it ever becomes a visible, external one. Do not wait to be believed by others. Believe in yourself first. Your self-belief is the most potent catalyst. Stepping into your new identity is a courageous act of self-authorship. It is an act of profound ownership over your own destiny. It is an unwavering declaration that your future, your highest potential, your true liberty, matters infinitely more than the comfortable familiarity of your past. And once you take this courageous step, once you genuinely begin living as the person you are destined to become, you will notice something truly remarkable. Life itself begins to align with you. Opportunities magically appear. Habits naturally fall into place. People who resonate with your new frequency enter your orbit. Your mind, your entire being, aligns with your higher purpose. Because identity, true identity, always flows outward. It shapes everything. This final chapter is not merely an ending to this audiobook. It is, in fact, a magnificent beginning. The beginning of your next, most powerful version. The beginning of your highest potential. The beginning of the extraordinary life you are now unequivocally ready to create and embody. Conclusion. You have reached the end of this audiobook. But let me be unequivocally clear. This is not the end of your transformation. In fact, for the dedicated few who have truly absorbed these principles, this is precisely where the real, profound work begins. This is the work of living every truth you have learned, embodying every discipline you have strengthened, and manifesting every mindset you have meticulously rebuilt. A superhuman mind is not built in a single moment of inspiration or a sudden flash of insight. It is forged daily, meticulously, through countless conscious choices, through unwavering awareness, and through relentless, intentional action. And now, having journeyed through these chapters, you are profoundly equipped with everything you need to rise into a stronger, wiser, more composed, and more powerful version of yourself. You have learned how to rebuild your inner foundation, shedding old, limiting stories and crafting an empowering new identity. You have discovered how to train your mind with the same purpose and rigor an athlete applies to their body. You have gained the tools to eliminate insidious mental noise and sharpen your focus like a precision instrument. You now understand how to upgrade your thinking, replacing outdated paradigms with perspectives that serve your highest future. You have cultivated the ability to strengthen your emotional power, transforming reactivity into intentional response. You have dared to develop the courage to think independently, claiming your intellectual liberty in a world that often demands conformity. You have turned discipline from a burden into your most reliable superpower. You now know how to feed your mind with high-quality, nourishing input, guarding it like your most precious asset. You have learned to take the long view, thinking in decades rather than days, embracing patience as a strategic advantage. You have mastered the art of self-control and delayed gratification, choosing enduring fulfillment over fleeting pleasure. You have discovered how to build real, unshakable confidence through earned competence, not superficial praise. You understand how to leverage the quiet power of silence, keen observation, and strategic foresight. You have embraced the profound truth of becoming anti-fragile, learning to grow stronger through life's inevitable difficulties. You have gained the capacity to reprogram your self-talk, transforming your inner critic into your most powerful coach. And finally, and most importantly, you have learned how to courageously step into the identity of the person you were always meant to become. These are not just abstract ideas. These are concrete tools. These are potent mental weapons. These are the timeless principles that separate a reactive life governed by external forces from a deliberate, self-authored life guided by internal purpose. And as you courageously move forward from this moment, you will inevitably face moments where the gravitational pull of old patterns feels strong. You will encounter resistance, doubt, and the temptation to slip into comfortable, familiar habits. That is normal, that is human, but every single time you consciously choose the stronger path, even in small, seemingly insignificant ways, you powerfully reinforce the new identity you are so diligently building. A truly powerful mind does not emerge through unattainable perfection. It emerges through unwavering, consistent, deliberate effort, day after day. Remember this with absolute clarity. You are not becoming a new person by accident, by chance, or by luck. You are becoming a new person by meticulous design, by intentional creation. You are not passively hoping for change to occur. You are actively, courageously creating it. You are not waiting for strength to magically appear before you. You are diligently, relentlessly training it, forging it in the crucible of daily choices. And this profound journey does not conclude when this audiobook ends. It continues every single morning you wake up with deliberate discipline. Every single time you pause to think before reacting impulsively. Every single time you consciously silence distractions, reclaiming your focus. Every single time you push through discomfort, knowing it is a sign of growth. Every single time you choose growth over ease, purpose over pleasure. A superhuman mind is not a mere fantasy or a mythical aspiration. It is a profound lifestyle. It is an unwavering commitment. Commitment to think deeper, to act wiser, to stand stronger, more grounded, and more resilient than the world around you expects you to be. It is a commitment to elevate your standards, to refine your habits, to make intentional decisions, and to embody an identity that truly reflects your highest potential. And with every conscious step you take, you are providing undeniable proof to yourself that you are capable of far, far more than you ever realized. So as you walk forward from this moment, carry this foundational truth with you. The world, in its conventionality, may doubt you at first. Let it. People might not immediately understand or even acknowledge your transformation for a while. That is perfectly fine. You are not building your extraordinary life for their timeline, for their approval. You are building it for yours. And when the results inevitably begin to show, when your decisions become demonstrably sharper, when your presence becomes undeniably calmer, when your confidence becomes quieter yet infinitely deeper, when your entire life begins to powerfully reflect the superhuman mind you have so meticulously built, doubt will not just fade. It will completely disappear. Because truly extraordinary people do not need to convince anyone of their worth or capability. Their presence speaks for them. Their consistent growth speaks for them. Their undeniable results speak for them. And yours will too. Your journey toward becoming extraordinary has already unequivocally started. And now a magnificent chapter of your life is entirely yours to shape deliberately, courageously, powerfully, with complete mental liberty. Go. Step forward. Build the mind. Live the identity. Play the long game. Stay quiet when silence serves you. Stay strong when the world tests you. Stay focused when distractions call. Stay patient when progress feels slow. Stay committed when motivation disappears. Because on the other side of all that intentional effort is a life that most people only dream about. And you, dear listener, you are not dreaming anymore. You are building one thought at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. This was never just an audiobook. This was a blueprint. And now the construction begins. Go build something truly extraordinary. You are ready. You have always been ready. You just needed someone to remind you.